over a metre.
Oh, you don't try them on, so this is a bit heavy and...
No, well, he knows exactly what...
Well, it's, just take a video.
There will be, but you can't tell by that one episode. I think you put...
That's his son's name, yes.
Down in the mud and the weed and so on, but from the point of view of...
The mainland of the Orkney Islands. At Costa Head, on the northern tip of the island...
Yes. He used to have his own canoe construction company.
It does, particularly...
Because I live in New York, a lot of recording...
He's cheap because he doesn't run on cumbersome hydraulics or...
1824 and 1828, 38.
To broadcasters to the rest of Stevenage.
You get on in Spain because they have a...
It was with alacrity that we all settled down in front of the box to watch Manimal.
They've all got at least one thing in common. They're all on...
to which you were born. You can think of other ways of earning your bread, away from...
The entire flock.
We have the single most
very quickly, but I think it's...
For most people, getting to work is a...
One has to take note of what they...
Atom-smashing machines called cyclotrons. And here is...
Not only ties, but shirts as well.
Yes, right. Well, I'll try and explain that. You and I and everything...
Free tip in Kirby.
I think it's certain in this very...
Yeah, come on then. If I move around and then you get a better look at them, they really are hiding.
By a proper microcomputer. Now, what's happening on...
And actually couldn't be clean. A bit old-fashioned looking, isn't it?
There's plenty to do to ensure he's looking...
And thousands of pounds have been offered to give him a...
Of course, they stopped sending them till they were about 6.
Mr. Atkinson, reasonably enough, asked the Speaker if there was anything...
It's a much more accurate scale gauge representation.
Not up really well now, go on. Pull up the slack.
Bear a postal code, but despite all this, the post office go out of their way to really publicise...
Listening to the news headlines. To ask you, was he fact or fiction, what would you reply?
Well, Manchester goes out and it becomes...
From here on, the complete translation takes only...
They thought at first the high wind...
They're extremely heavy. They weigh 300 weight each.
He also believes that...
The game's 19-year-old inventor is the son of a mine safety officer.
I feel that the...
Hand and foot in a fetal position for a week, and then the worst thing was to be unbound and the blood rushing.
The coal fanners, the astrologers, the flying sorcerers. I think it's a jolly good thing.
At the end of the front bench conference...
She went at the jumps that she enjoyed it.
That this is the pace letters have to move in the common market. When you come to think of it, it doesn't bear much...
Had to anchor outside.
Interested in the fundamental principles by which nature holds her shape.
Like that. And to introduce realism onto the opera stages of Britain.
We could do this for a fraction of...
Teeth. He's got 6 inside.
They're known as an official...
But first, our fixtures and trans...
It didn't actually flash, but when you...
£5 car tax. But all the council's roads are in huge...
Well, I think it's very wrong.
Anyway, I think so too.
Firstly, I think to...
Quite lonely as a child and didn't really understand what was going on.
It'll print out cheap.
In the medical magazine.
This squirrel can see the food, but it has to learn the security.
The problem...
Just settle down while I find the place.
So he's not exactly in Gene Kelly's class, but as he showed in Saturday Night Fever...
Cheap, it's reliable.
11 o'clock on a crisp Sunday morning, and the added...
Well, it just comes naturally.
Golf balls, because of the attraction. Secondly, they hit them faster.
But we found that so many boys and girls when we...
There's more than 100 flower sellers.
You see, you had the letter from your friend before you.
I would like to wear smart suits and things like that, you know.
In the Great Conservatory in Zion Park.
So I've had...
Opera, and I was angry at the management. I was going...
Furnishing is more akin to a...
It would be easier for the children in school to learn the decimal system rather than pounds, shillings and pence.
I'm chatting away all innocently to the caller at the other end of the line, and suddenly...
Ice may form upon their narrow pathways high above the street. And
The old glitter still lingers on in the unlikeliest places. Like here in...
Now, I mean, if you... Right from the
the audience, the spectators.
Which is lifted now, then you get a pater.
Why he decided on this particular way of
we'll shout very loudly. We'll try and...
Arm was quite stiff, so he said, what's about turning around?
Of course, it's been known for years that some 250 years is to be completed.
We do for the what?
I was greatly honoured. And
that's how long now? About 6 years, is it?
Yes, she's 6.
We used to hunt them for oil.
All calculations are done with these two figures only, in what is known as the binary.
Lights and with the...
If the illusion were surroundings.
For the environment, few companies
from the pressures of the big time, you can truly...
It's inside, which, of course, when the shirt is on, you don't see.
To arrive in a coffin some morning. And it was therefore that passport...
Spent at the rate of 2 million...
Hit you in the head, or if they hit Johnny in the head.
You heard them, they're angry and...
tremendous amount of money.
You can hardly hear any noise as the doors open, not like the familiar crash.
Farm work is over. The men of Bozinva turn miners again. And into the farm...
The visitor.
The outside columns here are four-post a bit.
3. It was 2 miles long.
Well, that's an Englishman's view of Sweden, but we in England read a great deal.
It was approved. 7 pillar...
The only thing you can take...
Dealt his dance before, we'll get into...
But one day, our locations people came up with...
In the corresponding game when Spurs won 5 goals.
Because he thinks he's having a very...
Among those who had chosen Glasgow for a starting point were 3...
Absent out onto the field. The blue shirts...
Before the crowds came in on Monday...
Rough drawings, and they also have a chart which you can show...
Bird lovers have devised a range of defences to keep squirrels off.
Razor. So always called ladder.
I think so, yes. He had...
A task begun in 1930. It was a city. John, what went wrong on the way back?
On the way down with...
Or private branch exchange telephone.
Oh, yes, that's very nice.
Which was it more often?
The circulation in the Manchester...
Years ago...
Well, this has been a great rage in the States for about 3 or 4 years now.
Why is it that in all of the fields that you could have chosen, that is constructed in a...
Much of a mark outside there.
And I made close friends, 3 of whom are still...
Hours of been queuing for several hours for a place on the ferries, and pop fan...
We very rarely...
What we really are doing here is...
Staverton with vans parked full of spares.
Up to 200...
Actually, we just haven't had time. It's slightly damp, actually, around 1...
But sometimes it's complicated.
At the end of the lake, you have the tether...
The first thing
They face dangers in a dungeon of many chambers.
Beginning casting your mind back all over the years.
I actually did once offer him in exchange for £15. I mean,
Well,
pounds, I
yes.
suppose. How could you...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Convinced that without proper care for the retention of...
You've got to put your left foot on there, on a little peg at the back here, and then you scoot it...
And here is the oldest known...
as long as you're... But they felt it was good enough to go into production. And the script, which is like everyone's nostalgic memory of...
There's the weapon, stripped.
Has the heating element behind it.
But superficial interest in the East, in Oriental religions and mysticism.
to pieces. But then when I started as a studio potter, I turned over to much more...
What sort of people normally wear a...
And down from pastures on hill and high.
There's your track coming up. You may be a bit off.
We'll have the code NOR-20...
Not at all. The bloody Orkneys.
About damage to hearing.
Put a mark up. Can you lift her up?
God, this little thing called mock...
Breaking the image and making it seem to float.
No, must have polished that glass a little too hard.
And coffee. Other things we've seen before, but the reason that the backgrounds are so dull is because...
It has an impressive number of bus and train routes. But in the flesh, the blank spaces are more noticeable.
Destroying him, he showed him to his children, and of course they...
Do you think that colour television can... And I remember one day, the family...
Type demonstration, but I'm going to switch the...
Additional complication, which is that you...
Our world is a tiny planet orbiting the sun and...
Correct English.
The computer...
I've always found a way of enjoying.
And I'll... Right, I'll be there. Straight away. Hey, over.
I know a lot of people have already seen, but it comes on the market.
I'm not going to waste my time on just...
under this wooden bench here. Now, you're probably wondering... Perry is a Gateshead groover who daily turns on 400...
Fall in the water. I got...
Well, no. They would never...
And fairly extensively...
Is the control unit, Fred, frightfully rapid...
Brewers beer round the streets of central London.
In the cinema. In other words, it's been censored.
Oh, gosh, this is a bull. Where do I get the milk from?
Straighten out a bit.
Oh, he thought he was unique.
Now, this pad has been... And most of the manual work...
A married couple discovered their hotel bedroom had a two-way mirror.
Some Smith hats at this house.
Foolish. For Zachary and Chapel.
We call that our bow tie.
Of these sets. Do they look like all...
This work a lot better. Put the metal tray inside...
Child.
Oh.
Would that make
I'd rather have a doll than my very own child. They must surround every corner in Harpenden.
He's a giant African snail.
Children, you have been raised in the great tradition of pounds and bushels.
Banks. But whereas it used to be a business...
And extremely fit.
I found out they wish to be known as trekkers. Trekkers, why is that?
He needs a hobby. And in his spare time, he...
It was a marvellous way of doing it, because the chip in itself...
I'd right. Ernie Hunt in...
Are advised to treat it as a conventional roundabout and go right round the out...
What kinds of snuff are there? Well, we've counted up to about...
When we play a band concert...
£1 million thrust, we're told, to blast off. But the physical sense...
With its worshipful master, its wardens, assist customs men pounced on Bugs and declared him an illegal immigrant.
3 o'clock this afternoon.
Family clans and what happened.
And if you did cast a lady, what kind of lady would she be?
Well, I don't think it would...
Bill, and below that you've got 4 legs, and give it...
Many still full of wine, white or red.
The flame, wondering if they can afford 20 pence.
This is a record, I like this previous record, Only the Lonely, which went, of course, to number...
And there they go into the... There could be found this week proof that the fest... Still, what Manchester does today, London can still do tomorrow.
Caused it. The mole was created to build the tunnel...
...of the Railway Executive and the Ministry of Transport.
That manoeuvre down at the bottom there was what is known as a handbrake.
An ordinary, anonymous person.
Put a nice coloured poster.
Authorities or somebody else ought to make it easier for you to find a place to train the...
Of course, only one other person who ever had 5 records.
Here she is, Nora. Take a bow.
Next door to Russia.
The only thing that's moving is my map.
Why do you do it?
Scott Tancred.
Huh? Why do you do it? Why do you spend...
No, I think so, not yet.
Girls on the other take...
A system which would provide...
Lord Erne appealed to authority, and authority acted swiftly and...
In just 1 year from now. And spacecraft and dirty human beings don't...
It's a tough assignment, and I wish you and the Doctor all the best of luck in your mission. And...
A country of surprises as well as contrasts. For example, in the...
But they're just sort of... nothing had been...
Number. On Monday nights, the Virginian doesn't only ride...
it was such a shame to...
Do you think that with...
Station, where historically minded...
Dan breaking his ankle.
Viewers, it hadn't...
And since then, neither Russia...
Quick, my chicken merengue should be ready before the end of the show.
Now!
Just say a word or two about this...
I don't think any team has been so close to managing players together. It's one side of international human activity.
Not only... It was all right.
You know, it's funny, but there's something about Sherlock Holmes...
If you angle the sails a bit, you can sail with the wind blowing.
They all find their way to your table.
And Ford was blind.
It's marvellous. Got here. Surely this isn't agricultural, is it?
No, it fills in.
Generally respond very well.
It must lead the...
There, then, you've heard the brief story of our house. A beautiful...
looking sock, more feminine looking sock. And there you are, you've got...
It's really sold for.
Even on the ground, their lead work would call for special skill. Up here, the job is made even...
Bracklesham FC, which now officially...
Because it does help you on your...
Nothing...
Continue resonating. Because all the unwanted energy that is picked up...
offer this post.
Of course, you don't move houses like this unless you're forced to. And there's...
Basically ready to shoot now. I've got a template here. Like...
In all its particulars.
Here's Ian Morgan, aged 30.
David Tremaine, who's 23, is staying night and day in a special...
In freezing water on the off...
In my ears. Looking up to the light.
Practically the entire Bentley team was...
Continuing, but locals are at a loss since the untimely death of their little brown duck.
Who we are, where we are, what our surroundings are.
We accused Labour of staging a political stunt.
And some passing publicity man would appear to have slapped a handbill.
Subsonic aircraft. So the
Game Boy Advance.
Back. It's really rather a comfortable feeling, although they...
That isn't about other people. But
when you study it carefully, not quite. And opposite, nothing.
Isn't it? Yes.
Poor chap, he always...
Archibald of Delphont from Nate.
They've published a 40...
Time. Flight Lieutenant...
And Crumpsall and Mo Cop.
Yeah?
Like this.
You don't go anywhere.
No, that's on the spot.
Do you keep your feet...
DVD. It's called...
Change? Well, possibly. That somebody's...
Peter Batch, here, the one that we were... The various...
An astronaut in it, or perhaps a television camera.
But early television was not confined... Given your country.
Relax and enjoy themselves.
The whole joy of this mower is that it will do most of the work by itself and leave you free, hopefully.
Effect it's going to have on our democracy. Will it mean politicians are forced to give up
a certain amount of comfort and a lifestyle that they enjoy?
Thumbs on a hand-cranked machine. Then it'll be taken to the South Bank, ready...
Roller skating, it's more like ice skating. Well, funnily enough, I feel...
...has now been built nearby. Not to measure the wind.
It won't be long before you won't be able to strike a
Almost historic day.
Dougal, of course, got a lovely bright shiny nose and...
I was thankful we weren't going back...
Ports.
On an old-fashioned spinning wheel.
And this is the...
Been reliably informed that the astrologers are saying that the end of the...
Could you? I'll just read it to you.
Down.
Ah, well then, if you're very careful, you can take the top off.
Not in at all, it had to be secretary and the director when we were rehearsing.
Time since the war. 20,000 spectators, it was estimated, watched the dogs.
This is Pamela Stevenson I'm on.
Well, you're on a bit now.
The mailroom, how did you then graduate to direct?
Experience. In this theatre, I faced the very first...
Then something will happen. Right?
The town in...
prospect is as bleak as the experts predict. They'll have to go back to the drawings
to magnify spirit voices. The bands at either end glow in the dark.
Which I must ask you both, have you ever cheated at bridge?
No.
These five, they're very... Some 70 tons. This great compression enables...
For the Coriatic. I hope this rain passes.
And once we've done the information, we can use it, like written songs and stuff. We can.
In an attempt.
Gravity environment they have on the moon allow you to
generation. And in this town.
Yes, and give the machine an instruction to start on the translation process, which I do like.
Botanic Gardens stands a statue of Lord.
Ah, Geronimo! But it is, I forgot.
This festival, say his...
Until it's only just...
England and Scotland, with frost in many places.
£50,000 to get him out. With this sort of money,
You may have noticed or not noticed that...
Shortly of people be inquiring about...
To mend a telephone wire in this mud.
Difference? Or is it the heart already?
British one or not, but in an American one...
Get a car.
Just that. In the same way as a...
I tell you, I think
a lot of people might think you're a bit daft doing something like this.
In September and onwards, and then after.
Then, being at a very impressionable age, is the bloated...
Other members of the team have been training daily, but there's been no sign of the talented...
You're taking your life in your own hands.
You all right, Walter?
It just chipped a bit on the edge.
Doing its run. There'll be another one.
Where they are put up for auction.
Maybe even stripy. And it really wouldn't have made any odds.
It makes rather a nice brooch, because you can buy a pin and...
Well, fine. Well, thanks, both of you, for coming along to the studio. In fact, I've got here two...
Dangling under helicopters or leaping through flames on my motor.
There were 400 ships queuing up outside Lagos, and most of them are carrying the same...
another guy.
The pipe was then...
Morning. They munch away at an endless succession of...
It is success. I believe it is.
Done by music. It is. Like pouring yourself a drink, for example. Okay, first...
And quite apart from any other...
They weren't setting out to be cruel, but it was their first...
In everything, except the plating. It wouldn't be worth my while with the amount of...
As the war went on, what became increasingly clear that...
Should this happen...
Ladies and gentlemen, like 1,000 women.
I guess so.
Really? Of the internet will be realised.
Well, I wanted to know what the lunch...
There was a super view from the job.
Contained houses to each block, and when the game...
A different harmonic. So in this way, I'm able to build...
Walter, that was...
And a shallow harbour that won't take anything bigger than a 30-foot open...
What to see is South Yorkshire County Council.
You've got another thing coming.
To you, your club, or...
May eventually be kept at bay when you can dial the computer.
Extraordinary being back here again.
Milk and water on the back of the hand and just wipe the leaves.
There are 6 bonds. In fact, it was a huge success. All he needed... Singer, actually.
Yes, you are.
When we say there, get that thing straightened out.
Battalion 2
job just after the war.
You like it?
And an operator...
The great triumphs of the 1917-18 period.
Speech about the virtues of sherry sack from Henry IV, Part 2.
To my winking finger.
Mediterranean artificial atmosphere.
That I lived. After all that...
Yes, I think so. Well, Gene...
It's beside the point.
Darling, when you write as worth Dickens, you know, you'll make a fortune. Is that all right? So, you know...
The wingspan is in...
That's the best one yet. Peter, it's marvellous to actually have them here in the studio and learn.
All you have to do is walk out onto the centre of the pitch, put your...
Today she's one of Britain's most popular and acclaimed actresses, carrying off awards.
Member of the British Interplanetary.
To one side, so you're all arched.
Moved news to the front page.
About an interior decorator living in tights.
Certain states of mind and of feeling here. Operation.
We received another tirade on this subject from Leslie Ames. They return to her or finds it. All she has to do is...
Budgies? No, I haven't.
Would you like to?
No, not really.
Some foreign species are too...
Thomas Snape, a nailer, also from Burntwood.
I knighted him before I went to India.
When they're a little older, having found they won't break or...
Than the familiar London black cabs do at the moment. This model's being tried out a lot.
Newly born lambs. Hundreds of them die...
livelihood.
Pasty has won itself a place on the shelves of supermarkets all over the country.
I like to be really
Me? It's International Beard Year. Do you like...
Numerous letters and...
Who's the king of the school here?
King of school, me.
You are.
The public are discouraged from attending. For the old... Be examined very carefully.
When you say organic material, do you mean life on other planets?
very powerful heating element there, which cooks food 3 times as quickly.
She's based her life on Rule 99 in her handbook, which says the gates must...
Who runs Joe Wider Gyms and makes Joe Wider products. It's $1 million enterprise.
Good way. The local residents have literally moved heaven and...
Just a few people who are out to make money out.
It couldn't have been better as far as I was concerned.
How did you...
Colette, I never thought I'd live to see the day.
It has to be bargained for.
He needed something to work out in himself.
Just like this one. There. And another one.
Be 13 and...
It was 9 years and 1 for senior.
Now the whole thing is controlled by a panel of switches here.
The master craftsman of hundreds of years ago.
Animal Man.
I feel that, well, always we know the driver, or practically always, except perhaps in a...
onto an existing music track, rather than the usual way around in filmmaking.
Happy high clear.
Thank you.
Way. How you can run it in.
And Yellow Child.
They've been tremendously successful at propaganda, there's no doubt about that.
Viruses is called the dyslexic virus. Every 3.5...
resort where people come to...
One don't know and one know. Thank you.
I'm afraid that we cannot compete in the...
goods. Some
in the British motor industry, a full order book.
By invitation only. And I think the
spitting image. I mean, is there...
which shrouds their old pitch on this.
In a car, for instance, you won't have a TV screen. Philips think that's too much.
2 tennis balls.
Called insulin.
Do this anywhere else, unless I went to the...
Into St. James's.
This is what the new tenants can hope to get. Mr. and Mrs. Reist are the...
This is the great culmination of human experience. The chip, this...
generators for our basic sources of sound. If the sound we want exists already.
To nearby theatres, the whole production can go by road. Of course, it is only the lucky few who can afford these things.
What I think
of anybody's life is where that person is. You take your world with you.
Rallies.
This doesn't mean the post office gets them fat.
Absolutely.
They're coming from work, and they seen the flash in the sky. To confirm that I have left the Spice Girls.
The pattern's not all going to run off. Incidentally, if you feel like doing a bit more sticking...
It was rather, yes.
How do you play the dustpan?
I sit in a dustbin.
Seize a chisel and hammer. But the new diet ended scurvy and Oh, I don't know.
And what were you saying there?
I was in different sequences. Grandparents, they were tea drinkers, big tea drinkers.
Here's the sun.
But they're utterly dedicated about secret agents made immediately after the war. During training...
It was 14 feet high, 10 feet wide...
and proved to be as good as real egg. By the way, this work by ranks...
And advertising techniques that this...
What price do you think you should be getting?
No, we've been quite lucky, because this is the first...
I just try this one on, and you can tell me. Now look, should you wear...
How about the... Apart from that, I don't really know what I do them.
The rules are complicated. You...
Device that nobody wanted to back. It was a coin-operated game.
This is Groton Church, just outside...
Was the manager, wasn't it?
Wait till you see the
Evil. The great bulk of the traffic to go...
And its job is to make evident to the person using it.
But this is how the system will work.
The Ulster Troubles.
Windows.
This window from the Lloyd's building I rescued when I went round there. They were very kind.
In colour has been... Alison Lee went to Abingdon in Oxfordshire to meet Tony Dyson.
At the back of the hut, there's a storeroom. The latest...
And an obvious excess of energy. This...
How'd you get away with it? How'd you get away...
America with dance mixes.
Yeah, lot of English club mixes.
You've got another thing coming.
They suit me, don't they?
No, don't think...
Excluding only regular...
Of course, are particularly difficult because you can't turn them back. You have to...
One prime ball.
Specific masculine mood.
Those of you who may have a nervous disposition.
Bed. So I just...
Out of 700 girls who competed for the...
site is derelict for the major part of the year.
What he would
Competition would drive this market on.
cake. This is the legend.
I don't know, it's ridiculous.
Artist films in which...
In the United States, you know, always a center for...
These were like years ago. So...
It worked out the right way.
Tabletop, use paper and...
Ride forever. Very tricksy. Getting on. Nothing happens.
Every business you're in, I had no idea that people were prepared to pay such huge sums just for number plate.
Credibility.
Because running up and down the tray...
First, or is that a secret too?
Well, I've got an idea which planet I'd like to go to, but...
Normal speed, all these movements have been...
Sucky. This is only a practice afternoon, or I wouldn't be...
Factories where work came to a full stop today stand...
There's an ordinary 1600cc engine in here.
As you know. In a computer. Well...
A car or anything like that. They see you coming and put another 4,000 on the...
Star quality. Well, I don't know...
I mean, you saw from the demonstration extremely stable, vastly more stable than a bicycle.
I suppose they're still entitled to do.
And the stuntman would then reel back, hit a wall, and fall.
Things like this was set up. Shakespeare's
expensive items. Pause a little on there. Those are the hand saw.
How are you doing?
Whoa, that's very, very heavy.
Right, well done. Well, now,
What's that? Across in Studio H, another item in the evening.
They're both terrible, right? As if I wrote like that, I would...
To the visual display unit.
As you may have guessed, Hornsey's new to nudis and doesn't know what...
On the bottle, exactly the same as we did our children.
Did you bring him up with your children?
Yes.
Round you go. It'll be very dangerous, this sort of driving. Mind this robot...
Which will be the...
Your family a reporter already?
Yes, my brother-in-law, Peter Edwards.
The quality controllers who are present. Workers from the shop floor are invited to give their opinion.
Conference of lunar specialists.
Has been a stock, a stick.
At 13 West Mile, found in certain overseas countries.
A fast, great comedian, one of the greats. And I used to, I still do.
Time professionals might have the highest in the world is the potato. And as every gardener knows, the finest seed potato...
For 2 or 3 days and see what you think, and after 2 or 3...
1 in 4 attempts to dunk a biscuit in a cup of coffee.
You just have to start.
It seems that out here you need time.
Every day there's a ritual tasting to keep a check.
How you doing, my boy?
Thank you, goodbye.
But if you happen to have about £15,000 to spare, it need no longer...
It took only a month to come to fruition after 7 days
of the Dunmow Flitch. For almost 800 years...
Through a battery of spotlights. 4 projectors show...
Modern sculpture from outer space. It is...
You mistake my word for this. There are 600,000 seats.
Now, see, you watch...
Each hour is...
Small for someone my size, but...
And just split at the front to look like a collar sitting over.
Come over here, we've been here 7 years.
Because they've got Aerosmith out of St John, as you've just said.
Many times this...
Some of the... Note was found on the mat. The burden of the middle-aged American...
Sort of tooling around...
Now we're seeing Sadler.
It's enormous visibility. You can see the very light colour.
Are you enjoying it?
It actually requires a tremendous...
The fishing line I bought them until the take was again.
And how long does it...
Home. In a mental home.
The pure disdaining innocence curled with the worm.
I would immediately see all these things if somebody said to me...
Test. 0.9% of letters carry...
Nobody can pay for the goods. And yet, the balance of payments is great, because the foreigners...
As an exercise for myself.
You might wonder what happens to all the paper, all the...
And go out in one of the school's racing cars and...
It's not only the money, of course. It's a very, very attractive item.
And it comes...
but appear to have retained our position in it.
And yet, in some ways, you're selling...
Cutting and lifting bow, and the flat after section that plain...
She must have been tiny.
Well, of course, as we withdrew over the ground that had been captured, that...
To tell if a patient is unconscious.
I think what's going to happen is they're going to kill him off.
Yes, I think, gentlemen, we can agree on the point that Mr. Fisher exists.
The television cameras, which are fixed on the outside of the hull. All right.
When the repair work is completed later this year, the Derbyshire spire will have been...
All drunk.
What had happened was that lots
who tried it out were, in fact...
I received a letter.
Is used to plan
the 17th century. Now, we may be
making at school a pen holder in wood, which was so bad.
And I take some of the 50s as well.
What?
And things in the taxi. And what about my wife? And my daughters?
I'll be wary.
The psychologist is learning.
The BBC was represented by the controller.
Or for those of you who may have...
Yes, that's you. What do you think the men should...
Everything from...
Someone decided to invent a few gadgets to help them.
Along with, I'd say, 1,000 into this parish.
Their dog out, and they're afraid they'll be liable for £5. But it's much more...
I really see a woman handling a pipe the way you do, though.
Well, I don't see why not.
But dare I say...
different from the usual kind, because you can't blow it up just like a balloon.
At the other end come the cans of plums.
And I enjoy all the care from the...
Bishop's Lydiard and King's Nympton. Ladies
to use it for.
There's no question.
complex. We as human beings have...
Is the individual's view, and that's where I think we lose as adults. That
Sweden.
What the...
All preserved is the sensitivity of this box, only picking up off the surface.
This row, if properly run, could be the major attraction.
And thirdly, it will not be parked on the side of the verge, it'll be moved.
Yes. £675.
The Patent Office in London.
Good morning! This is it, the moment you've been waiting for.
Instead of having to do that, you select.
The best advice you could take would be to school yourself to...
Very well, and I wouldn't be leaving, really, if I...
The upper part of the bridge cast a shadow, whereas the sunlight can be seen...
Well, he certainly was at school if he had lessons morning and afternoon. Have you trained any...
Grimoire. It's a carving in wood.
And that's over 60,000...
Oval names. Appledore and Chasewater and Saffron Walden.
Which these devices give, if any government...
On BBC One just a couple of winters ago, within a...
encourages him to follow the election campaign.
He didn't think that I was going to be able to get to the top of the...
Kittens class in the National Cat Club show at 11.
Exams do become rather a bit of a bind, but if you're an auto-numerous...
Unlike their female counterparts, male models can stain work.
It's very difficult. I tell you what, is it...
9 strings and a chunk of genius. Throw in a pinch of inventive skill.
Experienced enormously enjoyment from
creatures, the friendliest and most intelligent in the ocean.
This one is sort of dark grey, and this Dalek has got a message for...
Yes, compulsion.
Into the lamp, and the lamp...
Summer in real orchards. It puts a picker as near to the fruit as possible.
Let's vote!
But will there be jobs for the 9,000?
Yes.
Interested in history. Deep down, they do love to...
Give it up. I found that I seem to get a bigger appetite, and my wife has to cook.
Oh, Monty Mole has to get his coal for the winter and run a gauntlet of flying...
Machine in Tuesday's picture page. There is still something fascinating to the last week. There lies a story that is... by the builders. When completed, it will rival in size those at Alexandria.
Cheap. Sixpence was a coin which had...
pedestals. The ladies got...
When... Well, to Geordie exiles in particular, who can't...
It shouldn't have even that.
Of course, there's... Now we could...
Will have its own terminal.
Cockle gatherers go down to the sea. 2/3 of mashed potatoes, and I'm about to try...
And the scene of his best...
I'm worried for that record, and that's lousy. That's a good word.
For my right ear, I am going to use...
This year I expect it should be reasonably good.
Disgusting.
Why?
Well, I don't know. It's really disgusting. I would...
Been asked about the whole question of pollution, but we would say that...
Initially, only Pan American flew the 747, and the plane was...
10 by 10 by 10.
That's it.
Do they make good pets?
Told was a cheese comparator.
Oh, yes, I'm very fond of lobster. I prefer...
Enormously overlooked.
You see people in a different way.
Is it really going to...
For a pretty woman?
West German state have already been passed.
Well, it doesn't seem to hurt anymore. Like, you know, you get used to the
code. Oh.
And that's quite a lot. We're beginning to think we've...
There he is, Kit Kat.
As for the customers...
Cabbage butt.
Let me see you put her through its paces.
Sure.
No.
Jack, now.
Okay.
Second half.
When you're in there, that is the only way to learn.
Otherwise I'll be forced to speak as John Snag.
My dear fellow, everybody has to be...
Seem to have taken over the dining room.
Get warm gooseberries, which most people have got in the house.
But it isn't a bus station here.
She meets it with wrinkles around the eyes. Then she can rub in...
I'm told by the people on the Borough Council.
Even lauded as an entertaining, colourful character.
Chess video recorder. You...
Oh my God, last place I want to go.
Of car registration numbers, and there's been a book published about it. It's this one. It's called Car Number.
Ago, he was suspended for 2...
This is going to be the lap of luxury, because I expected...
Deep in a field.
And then from this live box, it ultimately finished.
And goat's milk.
A year during their match.
So they didn't stop you pulling it off the skip?
Well, they were... Finger.
No,
Bendy bits could do with a new...
Man in his way used to say that I had...
Small hours of Sunday morning, and between now and then, workmen will lift the rail...
do it. You can get a closer look at them. Hello, aren't you super?
100 pilots. It is very much a minority sport. I can't think of any sport there.
Will the town's moral fibre collapse? Will this become a paradise for peeping...
Exactly. I think what's on...
Jimmy Young consults a colleague about his prog.
I can't hear you.
People, and such a big community of people balance up.
That was the first thing.
Long. When will that be correct?
In the next thing, National Front have come through.
And the size.
Leave the cage open, which I've forgotten the fish top.
With us now for nearly 21 years. But radio hasn't stood...
100 years ago, town planning was not exactly a strong point in pieces.
Well, these, in fact, are chromed for me by an outside...
First competitor in the fastest Ben Nevis race on record. For the benefit of humanity. Difficulties in the main tunnelling operations.
To the service station, I mean, you had another...
The beads lying where they'd fallen.
From them in real...
Hacking.
And those took us to Isle of Wight.
And cure myself.
It is metallic. All right?
Mean. And this, of course... And the angle of these reflected dots...
Sympathetic towards him, but this hasn't influenced me in...
The television cameras, which are fixed...
Eating so many raw eggs.
The letters muddled up, and I was the
field, and as they're kicking up their hills, well,
the Richmond Greens are...
This was made in 1946, and it's one of...
And I'm about...
The fourth character...
Well...
Love, but there's nothing particularly loving about the machine.
If I put down a quite...
Have no purpose. You couldn't sell it as it was. You could only take away...
Good years.
Well, I'm just having a look to see if I can find...
But given up printing on paper altogether, much cheaper than actual books.
Round both legs and hold me.
And I see you have him beside you now. Where does he...
Apart from that, I don't really know what I do them.
I didn't know a ball from a sparrow, really. Anyhow,
He said, but we're the fuzz. Watch it.
Feed is made from fermented honey.
Here is that we're going over from...
they go...
They don't actually need a microphone.
Like the rest of the lemurs, and it's the only one not to have a tail.
That during the summer, for 10 pence, one can buy half a cucumber,
That's probably the greatest invention.
The belated rapid expansion.
Steel and iron sort of tubes all...
With clean sheets changed daily. It is one of only...
Within a hair's breadth of becoming mutton...
In this book, and there's in the book been a picture of many animals, but this lerp aloof, which...
£1,000.
The achievements.
The electrosensitive...
A plant, a drink.
When I asked about
Vivacious and gay.
On the lower decks. Well, if you made a long and dangerous...
It's not going to be like that. By a strange...
Well, Mr. Leggett says it's not. I don't think that is...
Cousin. The United States Air Force flies Old Glory from the flags. Then the main test. Out onto the...
Because the observations that we've made so far show a capacity
for the development of alternative...
5-6 verses and 2 or 3 middle...
I'm an assistant in the household linens, and after a really...
Bloopy.
Technically, it would be an offence again.
The string went to the trembling string.
Out. To the twist that's made it fail
to pass. 3 minor roads are also on the route, and they'll be closed.
Picture just being bought in an exhibition. They're going to be used.
And Apollo Canthus was flying off to its final...
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
What's going on inside this flower pot?
No. The gondola.
It was here on the RT. We'll send it along to you, Stuart. I'll write some more on it.
Just as one said, yeah.
And in cut film, this will be what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
And how long would you stay out for under the influence of that?
Oh, 5 or 6 hours.
And, I can't...
They're compact and can be fitted out to resemble anything from a Mini to a Rolls.
Computer-aided design units are now available as tools for... Parliament, nor even the Queen herself, has any authority in the Dutch...
Yes, I
am. Opportunities for would-be smugglers were obvious. Border town.
10 pence, one can buy half a cucumber.
The BBC's research department, Kingswood Warren.
Is American.
The big advantage that the white car system has over other forms of...
I'm getting massaged at the same time, all along my whole body and right...
Apologize because I'm sure that I'm not interesting the lady.
The same as we did our children.
Did you bring him up with your children?
Yes, he still lives in the house with them, plays with them.
Pace amongst these.
Until, at last, one is going at such a speed that it shoots off and hits the...
And while you don't necessarily have to be big...
And how...
Oh, you've lost weight, but and that... She saw when you looked inside. And these machines actually came from a pier? Yes, they would have come from a pier.
Rookery was the most infamous slum in London. Well, nowadays, guess...
About life, entirely. Yeah. All the docks then were at work, and ships would come by.
C2s, Ds or Es. You and I and every...
Marylebone Station to be...
...than any other people in the world.
More sophisticated music and a distinctive plot.
The Darling brothers look set to become personal millionaires.
Quite right, yes.
Just, it used to take you, not Mrs...
No, it used to...
Then they put the eyes behind the face.
This looks like the place for me.
Mark. And I hope you like it.
Line that I just spoken. I'll never forget that.
Drop your license injustices.
Happy Angelus, happy fingers.
Can you go anywhere near him? He's no harm.
I think, 7, yes, please.
Very good.
As in a normal aeroplane.
And Dougal, of course, got a lovely bright shiny nose and...
You get so fed up with telling the same tale over and over again.
On a lot farther has something to do.
This model.
Well, this sort of gas-making unit, in fact...
And for this weekend, the busmen's motto is service as you...
Sightseeing, but of course, their chairman, Herman.
Terms.
In ore, I think.
Actually, it's a
Begun.
Now, there's a little legend about the man who lived here. Well, to be honest again, children...
Speed of sound to catch them.
Out these warm and colourful decorations, some new...
A long time to get them. Well, she immediately made inquiries, but nobody in the neighbourhood seemed to have lost.
It can in turn pass on that information to its own...
Carbon and charcoal, I think.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're lowering, you're just slacking it off.
Textures Panto.
It's beer in this Welsh bar, so what really is the difference?
Strangford Lock, to be precise, has just come onto the market. And if you want to take...
The Sky at Night, Blake 7.
Between the mountains.
Together. And because it's all...
And maybe when you've got them all together...
Oh.
Is these, so...
From one picture to another.
To Ironsides over an ordinary horse for a start.
Hundreds of men involved in the project, only 50 have ever been in the...
The local residents have literally moved heaven and earth to try and get...
Which is as it should be. Because underneath them...
Find it, they told us. But nationwide...
England come here to play Scotland. That ground stand and terrace.
Because I'm holding onto a microphone, which is part...
Your flight regulations as well.
And pleasure whilst you're
childlike, is there should
be any wrecks, but should there be any, that thou wilt direct them...
Do this. In the centre of town, where there are attended toilets, they will change the locks.
Nobody has the fun...
And do make the figure look very attractive.
Do you think you could perhaps share...
They've got their own set-up, and that's it. They're not...
Now, boys and girls, a figure of trade union members, 80...
It's imperative to you that you've got to...
De Courcy came here in 1166, I think, the date.
For example, if you come to any Sardinian town or village about this time of the evening between...
Well, I enjoy arguing...
Photographers alike.
Passengers in this office here.
Well, purely secretarial.
Natural diamonds are still a gift of love and are likely to remain so forever.
Still love them as much as ever.
40. On the right in the Rorym
process preserves the original chemical structure of the egg. And that's why it's such an...
Owned by a British expedition.
India, Greenland.
To their smaller models. Because this...
Turn it over.
Without lowering standards.
Well, I don't know, you mean, sir? He said this Wolf character.
I think it's just it's the same people on the rock club, isn't it?
Schools, Harrow School, export trade as well.
Make it easy, it's on a Sunday school outing.
Got the clutch back and I've gone.
And you're away. Well, how fast does it go?
Become very important. Mood-setting effects without...
We are a fashion firm.
Yeah, as I don't say, 20... And the huntsman came and took the lamb back, but before he...
Oh, poor unfortunate, has to walk a yard.
Which the type can be set.
Not long, I fear.
On, Alan's bike is now a familiar daily landmark.
Yes.
Look, I'll be the third bullfighter on the left in El Dorado.
To do with puppets.
Anything at all you'd like to hear, just...
Seeing if Christianity...
With the brisk and spectacular show they put up.
Right. Nottingham always makes me aware of its past.
An interactive multimedia terminal offering a mirror.
It's not so much a sport.
Consumer news, fun and game sections, all of it.
On the ground, you know, grass does burn a little bit. What about this stuff?
I'll be from Brighton, disembarked to set about their day.
Down, and you take the loop and you put it through the buckle. Chapter, and I thought, I'm made.
The lucrative business, as someone said, of putting teenage growing...
10 to 1, in fact, that you'll come up... The tin mines of Cornwall, once flourishing, then derelict, have...
Huge birds, which weigh as much as a fat lamb and eat more.
Manager, he's an Italian.
This year's also been a very important...
Anyway, we went up there and...
Personal reward for himself.
Way that a long-playing record's produced. And oddly enough...
Or normal movements of the eye can't set it off.
That all
This possibility of it being little green men.
Put him in his place. You going to have a go at anything else, Simon?
I think that's it.
That's it, is it?
Chiefly responsible for this success is Vogel Wallace.
And grading large...
To believe that this is true interactivity.
And I've been concerned with electronic music for the last...
Small village which today is straining every rail and sleeper to support 100...
GHIG London, so there's one thing Cape Town. OK, but fine, I've thoroughly...
Swing perpetually backwards and forwards. Shake the heavy tin particles.
Players from 21 countries travelled to America for the championship, which took place in the...
To be different from other fish.
Dylan fish are noted for...
One can't really put a figure on them because it's like...
Well, I did it very quickly because we
The wrong way round. But the engineers at the BBC...
If the new system is...
Round now, to see if I can get him to do some writing.
We always like to give our visitors a big hand.
The holy families of foam.
But most of what I like. A way to work. They shook their fists at the man and said it served him right.
Of any house in the village, perhaps.
Here lots of times. Unfortunately, this has got to be my...
Before removal, and no check.
You know, and you're on an earner. Every race you must be. It's...
The attitude indicator on the left, and on the right, the navigation.
When I was lapping through the 135, I would come round here at about 100.
Set down, without comment, the lives and...
The outcome was a disastrous defeat for the Scots with the...
...talks or test tube babies. So have the hopes and fears of today's 13-year-olds changed?
For asking you to do this right at the beginning.
Curious passion.
But Edward...
competition to work out the average rate of increase from the 50...
So there we are. The monkey. And it's absolutely true, the monkey.
Okay. Everybody ready? Everybody happy? Yes, right. Stand by.
And this was no mean feat. Particularly...
What do you mean, what is she? Well, she's a bit like a zebra.
Yes, yeah,
This is what we're calling the club car, where the king can...
In the way that depends on how the signal was recorded there in the...
In the millions, but...
Anybody would think of my name.
It's all right using this remote control gadget, but really...
Really hadn't, you know. I come from a...
Find a patch of sky to start arranging himself against it, like somebody trying to hustle a model.
Okay.
Gemologists who prefer more...
Dead. 200.
For young viewers,
we're not talking about weather, we're talking about...
But what do they say? Do they believe that you are...
And cue John.
301, 3 next.
My wife and I do appreciate...
A place which almost throughout its history has had a secret...
And only one on the top level.
Nail varnish on its toenails. Whiskers are important.
Well, these clubs are going to be hard put to...
Now, when you decide to make a particular model, what are you out to achieve?
What the demand for these things is. Whether you like it or not, they're there, is there.
The Battle of Hastings. I presume that's the cardinal tools of...
Incredibly true that this whole...
Hundreds of orchards is harvested...
So that on the screen you get the illusion of movement.
Photographers alike.
Worthwhile.
I've enjoyed...
A breath of the fell...
Well, the merest she don't know. Club union rules. Any damage leaks...
China, of course, are particularly difficult because you can't turn them back. You have to...
In magnetic discs.
And to help him, he decided to place a loaf of bread on each rock.
The elements are clearly defined. They can be...
70 years ago.
And how long have you been on a day?
31 years, sir.
How many horses would you have?
What was it, division?
Oh, yes, you can do multiplication.
Then he gradually began translating.
Go from here. What are your plans now? You've just got a 1 3/4 open.
Well, first mile 3/4.
In the First World War.
This idiot savant point of view.
Which they won't understand.
Computers.
1498. The bristles and the paste.
Since Manchester United...
40 miles to the 100.
What's the haggis look like?
They're home or not if it's rain.
30 miles away.
Engines gave a lot of problems, but most of it...
Nearby is a model of the White City project.
Let's see what we can do. There. Have a smell of this.
There we are. Come on. Lid. And...
Does he do sums apart from, what was it, division?
Present Sadler's Wells programme. And our cameras called there this week to make this...
Demos who probably couldn't even list the isms on the political lunatic.
...away from home.
We've got to have a good golf coach, obviously. These boys can help one another.
When he saw the collection, he...
becoming indistinguishable from film.
Really?
Eating the sheep.
And then when you come to fix the baton on...
Would have read nothing of it in the newspapers.
Briefly, in general, do you think the press has been fair?
Instead of the other way around for a change.
It's refreshing, if nothing else.
And said, well, this is it.
...into the barrel. As this was a large apprentice, he had to make a large...
That little one, tides are at their lowest. And if I wanted to stand here at the height of a spring...
Or owning enough weapons and armour to equip a small army, then here's a chance.
In a thriving, expanding business.
Copy it.
I'm selling in the shops at about 12 and sixpence a pound.
State takes care of them.
Peter, hello, Peter.
Hello, Vincent. Now listen, I've been working...
For me, for instance, more than my brother, and by trying to corner me and...
We're just a bit more hit and miss.
To throw into gleaming relief the buildings opposite.
And trench cross.
Of course it would be better.
You get away.
And a hearty sprinkling of beautiful pair of feet and ankles that I have ever seen. And
those great strolling acrobat as a father.
Greatly hindering us in the development of our business.
the goons.
The white bits are just cloud, just thin cloud.
But there's one...
The pilot pushed his foot on...
No, I came back in 60. That's when I
better get a knife.
Clear across the back of our aircraft. It was smooth, but not shiny or glittering.
Sentinel at the entrance of Force Guards nearby.
That if you saw it in the wild. Now, Armand Michaela Dennis.
Which has some weeks he wears...
Street fighter, almost a vigilante figure.
But there's no Robin this time round.
Be moulded into a...
This country...
His cousin Keith, who's a farmer.
Which were once lethal weapons and are now collector's pieces. Scores of...
I don't believe in children in pubs.
Do you not?
No.
In spite of the fact that you've...
Thanksgiving service at St. Mary Magdalene Church.
His car, a Ford Prefect, was also being fitted with devices for the journey.
Formed the team that designed it.
The economy consists...
Well, all these little models have got one thing...
It could be like that.
And the result was I had my leg...
is removed from the bell, the layer of sand is scraped off. And as viewer...
32-years-old record of...
employs you must be an absolute snurd.
Okay, let's get back to our
Gosh,
call.
you said snurd.
They speed your reactions up and to eye-hand coordination.
It soon developed into a personal friendship.
Yes, right. Well, I'll try and explain that. You and I...
...in her when she was a training ship.
The bell round his neck to frighten away the foxes that tinkle.
I do everything myself.
Who said to me, when I was a boy, we always used to run a bellwether with the flock.
We've had come to the cookhouse door, haven't we?
Need a big room for an orchestra, I think.
This time I think I'm going to use Bobby Fischer's Gambit of 19...
One workshop to the next. This engine and...
What Petra weighs, so she must be a big bundle to look at.
This and to be able to get through to the...
It's from here that...
She led me up the stairs, me lads, to show me what...
As High Spots, the evening of entertainment and cabaret, led off by the local Morris.
What's weird?
Invented a new way...
For decades. David Bowie...
Well, a song that I did write with Iggy Pop.
Oh, yeah.
Because ahead of us, there it is one...
About traffic jams.
Waiting. One Nigerian official said recently...
4. Now, this isn't something for the long-distant future.
On the...
You have to play the initial...
And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Use it is to give a consistent interfaction down at the other end of the gallery.
They don't ever have power. Parliament has no power. Power is always
Successful, then we're glad.
I've got a brand new pair.
Shillings takes hat.
Sense of social responsibility.
At all exchanges, records faults and action on every...
Working hard.
I tried in it was
150 people who live in this little island.
Try again, have another go. Well,
needs to be selective. I've heard countrymen say that
nearly everything was made out of something else. I mean, the cupboard.
The eyes up and down. Now,
that portrays to the viewer.
Maybe they come here specifically for...
It's R2-D2 and not any old imitation.
In lonely places, make your dream holiday. Could you beat this?
Now they're busy eating, and their eyes are open and they're about.
Commanding the unit is a Welshman, Major Colin Vaughan.
Can we see what you really...
Any old genes, but any old...
Complete civic centre is planned, and there's a vigorous youth centre.
It's well deserved.
Oh yes, they're all of you, all right.
Garden enemy number 1, the mealy cabbage aphid.
On the whole, subscribe to this attitude that you just defined?
Steam trains.
Anywhere else they'd
Every year, and it costs £8.
Yes, great music can ring in your ears as friends.
The pictures for the Pugwash stories
to be reduced. The result
from aviation's golden
says. And this one...
800, we produce roughly 75 hamsters a day.
There are all sorts of rumours about...
Scattered on their land.
I think what one is trying to do is to communicate information.
Propulsion, which we feel will give much faster travel and much smoother travel.
Then they say, oh, so many miles.
But some of that work. First, do you remember this experiment?
Going at all. Even with Patch wandering around, I think Patch is going to take it going that it wasn't worth the expense.
While white Spanish baubles form the relief on this...
Mistress watched over Gertrude and her partner Donald.
Volunteer for signal.
Park. She wasn't exactly planned.
Happened during the winter time and the stallions, everything.
Then you need 4 bedding irons from an old bed frame, which act as the frame...
They also say...
I mean, I could see the situation now when we get there. They will...
At all in the mood. I think they would have been quite happy to have played football all day.
Mini Clubman GT, nothing special.
marked by connoisseurs all over the world.
Most summer afternoons, and incidentally, keep you one big jump ahead of the Joneses.
This is where the motor is, underneath here.
It's a...
rear engine.
See skateboarding killed off altogether.
Section by section, these smart motor vessels have...
A year later, you're probably going to see, like, a new improvement.
I'm going to try making a Scottish perfume.
All right, so the people are passionate.
And I would earn some money till $1 billion.
Whoa! Books and lots of articles. And
one that's broken all box up
in the valley.
And out of this
feeds the grasses the cows eat.
I mean, you must have teeth of iron. I'm 11 stone 2.
It's very difficult for a person to write a Valentine card. Now...
Neither Russia nor...
Pressure is equal to the launch thrust of an Apollo moon rocket concentrated onto a spot the size...
The day that the rain...
Optical effects and film exposures have to be...
Which is that the goal is basically for you to use your...
...maid, and juvenile fortunes clasped in ground...
Might come out of any such organization. I believe, in the end, they would...
Just settle down while I find the place.
And after all, we're all children at heart, I hope.
Slowly...
Although almost all the activities on this farm...
She's like, do you feel like that?
What, disloyal?
Well, if you...
But, it off. It sounds a bit Big Brotherish, I know, but
Have you been smoking a long time?
Starring features are its design.
As the doctor says, does sometimes.
The wagons, because I think I won't be the last one anyway.
He knows they wouldn't bite a friend. You can't help...
It looks quite attractive, really. And...
I'm about 14.
Eat up mice and rats. But a hippopotamus...
Normally take them to 2 or 3 of our local churches.
Okay.
Well, you're a regular customer in this market, are you?
It's that image of royalty that they come to see. And they come away...
Hope you are well. How's that?
Now we've got a really important application of the transistor, the so-called flutter dart, which may very...
What sort of food do you fancy? Well,
One way of impressing upon them where the boundaries of their town. First of our mainline diesel electric.
Managed to sneak some snapshots of Russia from here. Within half...
Butterflies in these groups.
And, as Jim Biddulph discovered, it's become very rich for an...
Look at a dustman, because I don't class my... Though I'm a dustman.
I feel a bit of violence. I mean, it's actually... I'm from Glasgow and lived all my life.
His legs, you see. Let me...
The Queen's Jubilee tour, planned for 2 weeks' time, will be postponed.
Do a lot of television work. I mean, newscasters, for instance.
This was in a private...
Transforming them into the perfect...
Can she add up?
Yes.
And subtract?
A record of Lady Samantha, which I hated, but Steve Brown liked.
That's over.
Experience in working with this equipment and engineers who've had years of experience.
Finding out all that you can do. For example...
Motford or Catherine Brake or Isabel Dean. It made us feel that we was escaping.
Motorbike stuntman George Bailey. George was brought in after Darius.
The outside world. Here, Yorkshire villagers vie with Bavaria.
Town, Macon, Georgia. I had been watching
world. James Agee once said that to meet him was like meeting them.
To them, for instance, as the first, because this generation...
This is the Charles Peace Collection, and from these, it is widely believed, came the inspiration for the stars and stripes of the...
You have to have the compass in the kit.
That's right, yes.
Post office, though he's unlikely to spend much time behind the counter
in the Ark Roll telephone directory.
There's enormous interest. I love London.
Let's go. One of which is this old door, the other is chalked on a tree.
Think of crap.
Then he produced the other one and he's... Absolutely. Give us the open...
A great need to renew the...
Roughly what will I be expected to do to get...
Army fashion trade.
Order them through a French shop. Then you pay the full price.
Not to bring up, and I'm not going to let them go because I know they want...
Have cut death duties. They've been doing it as part of their economic strategy.
Now, you probably know that all sounds have a wave.
In every way. And,
Since the cost of it has just...
Are here in Ireland, and that...
A strange coincidence is that on the opposite side for Queen's Park Rangers...
St. Valentine.
Lies the clause in some fashion.
If you put a television camera inside there, and you got motorway problems...
The phrase, may the force be with you, became a very widespread...
Modern snow.
You've either got to be unhappy at work...
And is also used in a delicate system of balancing...
...the rock by sighting spots in Europe for motor racing, because this roundabout is...
Get in there, Goldie!
Peacock pitch. 55 stalwart lads from...
Particularly the Shield celebrating their Grand Slam in London.
This is not so important because see somebody catch.
Is passed to the dining hall servery, where airmen and airwomen line up in a...
First of all, I'll go...
The developer of the system quickly discovered that it's one thing to record...
how do you reckon we can get it up?
Nothing rude on radio.
Told no fewer than...
Air forces. Now, I remember as a boy...
Thing, can you? Just think of it. 8 little legs climbing up your arm and eating live...
To stop redevelopment.
As well, would you?
Well, we'll have to do something else, yes.
What will you do?
Well...
I'll just...
I
didn't think it was wise.
Wow, you didn't think it was wise?
I don't...
Well...
Do this. Well, I wonder how many of you are still in.
I might say he says that in... You must have been having an exhausting time going around the shop, Mr. Johnson.
Click. Take pic.
But very polite as well. And that's...
Oh, one of the primary rules here...
More than 3.
Not a case of a bundle stuffed in a hip pocket. How do you get them over there?
This Abbey Church.
When I first went.
Overhead, there was a tremendous wind, dust was everywhere, and the noise was so...
Century is old and forged with black. It's marvellous.
Look what's happening over there, you know. And there's nobody more state-struck than Annie and I.
Rushing to those muscles.
Its magnetic field, and without...
They're doing their part.
No, I'd like he, but I don't want groups. No.
And we've got 20 to Jeff.
Yeah,
He's
but if
going a lot faster, but
extremely well behaved. The only problem is it'll...
Favourite pensioner grand. On your nerves, there are 120 other tunes to choose from.
No. Under this wooden bench here.
What about your whistling? When did you start?
it makes me buy things.
When you put on your... For aggressive purposes, here is what...
Dog, you're killing me.
Facts. 6,000 miles away in Cape Town, South Africa.
Inside the engine. There's a...
This is it, the moment you...
It's the kind of industrial...
Almost a natural part of the scene. It's uncharitable, but probably...
The controls can be making the train, well...
And then you can start just peeling away.
About the fact that professionals don't necessarily always know what is right.
Oh, that one? Which one would you like to have a go?
Keyboard.
Telephone system. And you really are...
It's not a drawing or a photograph or a...
The Manchester Guardian in its home area within 20...
Then, over the huge wheels of the wine...
Not.
It depends on the type of thing.
Book, and there's in the book been picture of
Peace and brotherhood.
2002.
Replacing pictures.
Strawberry and jungle green. In America, the change has happened already.
Total staff is 65 at the present.
Well, here I am now talking to you from...
Without lowering standards.
Do you want to come into the railways? A general interest in transport.
Quality of the dialogue.
What your memories of it?
Like he's had a stroke or something.
Is he conscious?
No, he's barely breathing.
And has now that one doesn't...
The Speaker told Mr. Atkinson to go ahead and ask his question, but the jolly
man who, as he, continually says, never makes...
Balls is this.
As we understand it, the side crimp is a Cornish crimp, and...
Flock of sheep lying asleep in a field, and it became evident...
Very loud. Eventually...
With uncanny accurate. Adam Dean. It's a funny audience to be seeing Oxford.
1,000
lads rambling in peculiar clothes, and an old man in...
Well, if I can go up to the paint area here.
That's a long time ago. I've been
Drawing. I'm making that beautiful cross over into the middle, where it was Osgood.
You can always buy for much less money. This is only £20.
This enables you to get back in time.
That's right, yes. Well, people have the money to do with what they want.
Yes. Severe and unrelieved lines
are perhaps the lucky ones, because it's estimated that several thousand...
His whole idea...
Dialect, so many...
This camp near Bury St Edmunds for their voyage across the north.
Find regular indoor premises. Too many sports centre managers think street hockey...
Boring, and I asked to take any...
Latest Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me. It has women, action, and me.
It doesn't get contaminated. Then you have to crack the
bin is the probable fate of... The operator can speak to the captain of...
In the Open Champion.
How many stones there are in the circle?
Hello and welcome to my commentary position, high above the valley ground.
Waiting on the top of this enormous tower, waiting for the motors.
It's usually on... We've done...
As I previously said, we're trying to intensify this.
I was born in Jamaica and sort of came over to England.
And we'll make some music. Great. What is that doing? That's... This is... This... What do you think he's watching?
Because he had 11 children, and that's turning being a daddy.
Are you ready for the picture?
Like that. Hold it securely.
Hip-hop and rap stuff, and Bart as a kid.
But it will be all trees compared with artificial ones. The Forestry Committee...
Highly localised programmes per week.
Where the cables can be tested.
With frost in many places. Tomorrow in eastern Scotland.
And the monument, built by Sir Christopher Wren.
It was a month.
And it has, as in the...
Been made, Mr. Alfred...
Something on the parable of...
Bit well over me. And I started to...
Clean bed and breakfast for only 18 and 6.
No. Yeah. What do you think of this? Fabulous.
But
particular robot was studio, and from the moment the lines open, they're hard at work. I was going to...
Own thing again.
You're
fantastic.
Factor, and we are banking on the fact that Paul, and it's shading on this. But from one thing another, kids knocking him over, they change it.
You saw will have grown to almost 16 feet, right up to the top.
The pitch and volume of the sound and the running speed of...
It was in 82.
There has to be a competitive element.
No, another thing.
Play. All you have to do is, first of all, to switch it off.
You have to either stop them for an hour, or you have to turn them.
Kenneth Williams, myself, and...
Dora's, well, rather unusual. She's really proud of her daughter.
To write according to Sandy Shaw's ability and style. Luckily, her ability...
Of machines, more...
Do you think you could put them to sleep, relax them enough with another?
I'll give it... Landing over.
Bringing them up to date and up...
It doesn't take me so long.
Oh, for me? Yeah. Well, I don't think...
People abandon us, they're saying that I'm vile and obscene. Do I look violent?
Well, I hope you have a lot more luck with these two young ones. Are they sort of shaping up quite well at the moment?
Sitting for arms begins.
The instrument is woodwind, all right, but it makes no sound. That reed vibrates a beat so that you can play...
Should be dressed up as a visitor.
So we hope into the...
People who were here before refused...
It took a...
If you can help me, I bought a beautiful...
Method of administering oxygen to patients.
Knew that it doesn't even have a name.
David...
What?
The knives and the...
Over the weather. So perhaps it's the...
We'll do a wheelie.
First prototype, in fact. What we have is an electronic sitar.
Satisfied that a piece of dialogue will work.
Open the reservoir, named in his honour.
He actually got 1.5 miles.
Sitting in a dustbin.
As a sort of cartoons you see when...
Sure enough, there's a big mound of earth. There's a bump.
I mean, after all, he's not...
People imitating you?
Yes.
Which they...
One pound of scotch and soda.
Leads to the unexpected. Press the...
Another thing the new owners will be able to...
COAC's Silver Jubilee and 30 years...
up in the roof, which, just by way of a bonus...
What you like, that if the horse have sorted letters into 48 boxes by reading the address themselves...
...was made from.
Well, you might think it's a very ordinary cardigan, in fact, because...
Enormously over life-size logo.
What is the...
He's made out of a kind of cotton wool.
You look pretty fit.
Thank you, I am. I hope.
In his book called The Media Mob, the perceptive Mr...
And yet this was the man who developed the close-up, the tracking...
It's the culmination of all the work...
For the show. There they were all large white pigs, and that little...
My lawnmower off in the early morning.
An indication of the noise level.
In the afternoon, a grand procession is held. Women being given an honoured place.
Not only do they neglect breakfast, but nobody has lunch before 2. And so to stave off the...
Well, it's about time on our journey...
2 sons.
Right. As well. Don't you find this...
And this one...
Who thought it was a late April Fool. But many also told of other sightings.
I thought I'd make you feel good. So I wore this.
By looking on.
Where's my fax?
You've given them up, ain't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, happen. They may well have happened.
When they're cut, which lasts from 3 to...
One day you've got 6 for 10 against a good side. You can...
Please?
I think 10.
I think I'm right in saying it couldn't be better. It's simply like a rocket. Bang up. Bang.
States in England. It is mentioned in Doomsday Book. And in the... He tells us how he works.
Been excellent, certainly there.
That's platinum, £26.12.
What sort of...
Flask brews. Samples of the tea are collected.
They saw and almost... Voyage they're making is going to take 2 months. But they're not going...
Trouble is, the silage smells whenever it's moved.
Golden news.
Did you, from the start, go pretty...
Much nicer to be able to sit here with my own 2 feet firmly on the ground.
Very precarious. You did.
Or so before.
At the moment that I came to the bend, one of their mechanics...
Do you worry about...
around over the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think it should be said, Brian, that teenage fashion and rock music...
Between London and South Wales.
Up and down,
up and down, so push.
All a bit far-fetched, perhaps.
In only 12 years, the pub
seemed to think I was trying to sell a new product. Any product except the
police laboratories. The new breathalyzer
championship team.
This race was first sailed 100 years ago by the old trading barges. 20,000 was declared fit for service.
Why, don't you like the job?
Oh, no, I've been on some time, you see, never mind.
See that for where I was? Crash. That summed up exactly.
We gotta do what?
Say hello to the little people.
Comedy, or me.
Dickens had been writing for
And you've read it 10 or 11 times.
and they are a group of northern businessmen.
On stage, I may say it's totally the reverse thing. Right? All I really need on stage is absolute power.
Words of one syllable.
One of the things Nationwide represents is an attempt by the BBC.
I should have to check that.
I mean, in the summer, you sit outside, but in the winter, obviously, you know...
Just a question of stretching the stock.
Time for Kate Ward, 80 years old today, to exercise her dog.
Brilliantly coloured, like many.
And the teamwork.
Yes, it's bad manners.
Lapelmet.
There is, of course, a hot...
Look out of his window.
Would result in 40 days of rain. Well, it's not looking much like rain around...
Which no machine has yet managed to copy, if the pasty is to be worthy of the name.
Cooking pots. A friend of mine always buys... My sister does what are they called?
Big in Europe. Have you found this?
Yes, well...
How long may they wait here before they're dealt with? To stand.
Carabiners.
Sideboard to watch the match.
I'm not awfully sure what...
Oh, I'll put it back.
His judgment of true ownership would not be the judgment of Solomon. That is, the cat would...
At the material you and Connie had
We're bound to... Of course. How much does it cost to buy a canoe like this?
All you have to do is to fire a few...
What was the result this time?
Adequately.
It's almost human.
Anything else left for you to play? Now, Peter Pan.
This is the dominion of the computers.
An ambulance. There were 14 private cars.
Logical outcomes.
And the dining areas act as a buffers.
A machine such as this is operating in the field, it takes up a large...
I'm quite sure to finance his removal and to accept them.
It's a bit smarter. Just good wash. Wash the lower nose.
Grandad with the...
You shut your mouth suddenly. Open wide.
And the cameraman. Now, if we turn the camera around a bit, the first thing that we notice is...
She's sort of... They took all of the pipes out.
Commercial reason may be that without...
Would slam jam also, so, you know, doing the thing.
I was going to join the cast of Mutimer's Island, and,
Sound okay, Jim. Sound okay.
Through with you and are still close friends.
Just a section of the young dressed up in a lot of gear.
Saturday. You want complete flight descriptions. Another such street.
Craig Dew. It's a pleasure.
From the Commissioner's office, I went to find...
Might not hear this.
He's eaten, in fact... Had very good reaction. We're privileged with the horse. It's a bit like the...
So we invented a thing called the splurge gun.
Of all, it's this one, R.
Oh! Ah!
They can't be exaggerated. But Mr. Hurst must be absolved.
Yes. You can strike, and you get the money. So
She's had a bad day at the office. She's not joking.
And there's another feature which is very, very valuable.
Once this game was...
They're granules of graphite.
Firm, true wickets when the soccer season starts.
Had
deserted if they had.
But R2-D2 wrote to the film company, said...
And there's also a pantry with...
Defence could not be overstated.
Upside down.
But most of the films, particularly most of the films that I find myself in...
Come on then. If I move around, then you get a better look at them. They really are high.
Oh, and then there's the noise. What? If you have...
That I first met, who really...
One, for instance.
And sad, which the BBC declined.
Bend to one side.
Bridge. It's a fairy bridge. And according to the old legend...
Good boy to him.
Composition comes in here a bit, doesn't it? Where are we going to put it?
And the nose wheel following...
And has a separate job of work to do, melody and accompaniment.
Brilliant weather brought...
One...
...as well. And then into this steam... ...up through the coin mechanism, so we...
That whatever's here will probably, if it does come up at all...
...is heat-proof and moisture-proof and will last indefinitely.
It was brewed here 300 years ago. No knobs, but a master brewer.
Gene costs about £75, but performs...
...language, which means that the programmers you can specialise in... ...through.
You wrote a book saying...
And this stroll of exam...
Real ale. I asked him...
idea how it would probably be seen by anybody on the moon itself.
Patients actually come to prefer it. With it, they say, they're never upset by bored or indifferent medical...
Hence it's the only one? But how come it's now, you know, being used by the general public?
Bloody hailstoned on. I have been...
Right. One more. Here we go.
That's your grandmother is ill.
Experience with things that you have seen before.
Oh, yes, I think so. We did it during the war when we had all the evacuations.
So it's a bit of an anti-monarchist on the committee, is what you're saying?
No, not really.
This is a mock-up of the Concorde cabin. The aircraft is designed to be...
And anything else clad in fur or feather you can put in a cage and bring along here.
It's just a plain one now.
Fantastic chrome decorations on it.
That if I eat these tomatoes and go and do my...
On adding new things up to about 300 before...
Dead funny. David Haig was off.
Indestructible. They say you can jump on it, stand on it.
Hoped and the ambitions that I had to put into operation...
...have garlanded their houses and their church with...
Tonight, we were absolutely horrified by the selection offered.
Ran in with the flock this spring, and I don't think that we've lost...
Treks run continuously. And...
The name of Beyond Down Tower is from Wimbledon.
...old as the river itself. Born and bred...
I thought if one could have some...
He wanted it to be like Psycho.
Octopus. Time to get used to us.
And he's very like Joey, as you can see there. He's all...
Little computer program. It's only got 5 instructions, and we can...
And we were afraid of him. I don't want him to be afraid of the police. But
his greatest film success with Julianne.
And finally, out of a myriads of loudspeakers, whatever...
With a ball. Nowadays you can't walk down any street without hearing this.
Here is the decompression chamber. A huge...
Shouldn't humble about them. They're...
Well, if you just joined us, very good morning from us here at... I say you should leave.
Vogel Wallace has ambitions for himself. In the 19th century, it came into the hands of Theodore Court.
It's a job. You have to know how to handle yourself. If you want to...
Absolutely necessary. He needn't get out of his old capsule.
Just an odd one, now and then.
Once shouted for any more fares.
The footpath system, although safe...
It's been brought out by the originators of the baby bottle.
Mrs. Schilling's appearance amongst the world's best-dressed women makes the other side with Leslie in it. Pete's...
What is it, in essence?
Well, that is it. It's the back.
...had to be abandoned because of bad weather. But here at Highbury, one thing...
...excited me tremendously until this...
...would well be extended to cover the whole of the country.
Midday on Tuesday.
Her steel octopus has got explosive arms.
There's certainly enough of them. I should think it...
Toll for this pilgrimage was 22 engines.
Because I did the mistake.
What sort of French things do you think?
6 and 15, yes, 15 gears.
I'm not awfully bothered what people think.
There were 25 junior ambassadors facing me across the room, all dressed.
Because we only bought 6 copies of your book.
The tunnel was flooded, but the drawing survived.
Of its beam, the shadow will always be... Materials are affected by light. This
It's been designed by 2 Dutch gentlemen. It can either be worn...
Markers for the cheap...
And don't inhale. Not yet, anyway.
Valuable in the field.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop.
On the beaches of England are builders who understand that an Englishman's home is his castle.
Cleaning. A tiny television set. Brother here. Oh, then. Quite difficult to see what...
In Liverpool, that's...
Going digital will be... optically scans the strip, converting that reflected light into electrical signal.
They rested on the bed. In fact, I've been told by my parents that...
Activated switch. Any sudden noise in this part of the studio, and that prototype...
A lot here, and I understand there are breeders.
This one, Be My Valentine or Else.
Then they're twisted...
Now he's got to do about...
of the film.
The corner, he was...
Times, and sometimes sitting down, and...
See oil coming in.
Today, he'll be Colin Baker, best known for his role as Paul Merony in the BBC.
Right, they should have the vote, and as a staunch Conservative,
Before I press another button here, we might just...
By 1970.
Day of a lovely May. All work ceased in the valley.
Yorkshire Dales, the weather is still...
...of their past. This is O'Connell Street in Dublin.
So, approach at the right time.
Flourished. After all, I said, there are plenty of alarm clocks.
Beyond the fringe, private eye sort of background, and also...
Yes, I didn't do it intentionally. You all...
Original, make a village. And so I said, can I build a church? And she said, yes.
Yeah, 6 and 6. Yeah, you can't buy teddy bears at that price anyway.
Well, I know... You can see what's coming over the long mole if you look staggering.
Yes, but I've just got my ambition.
It doesn't get misquoted anymore. There's something, you know, innately credible about me that...
A high occult order. We in the New Forest don't use so many.
As they put it, just good friends. They do everything together.
He's down there. But to get from here to there, there's only one...
Austin, whose career off...
...made of the Alexandra Rose Day charity.
Because we are a very densely populated...
Absolutely no complaints. Even the hated fatigue
of other working girls. Except that when she's had a...
...set of stereo speakers is they're down here in the front doors. That's so that the driver and...
...is enormously heightened because I think there are so...
...that our phone could be so busy.
The players' 20% pay rise.
Well, parking is a problem everywhere. But doesn't any town...
yeah.
...is up there. To be any good at this game, you've got to start at 10 years old and...
Come on, Howard!
I think the difficulty will be to persuade young women to go into the House of Lords.
A bar, a laundry, a post office, and telephone and...
This is an evil...
I have set up the 2 receivers about 6 feet apart.
Head called Moon Trail.
Packed with extraordinary...
...over the top of the head in those days. I think I ought to just tell you the story of old Bill's balaclava.
Hampton, who says...
I have others.
They didn't want to do this.
No, they... Francis gave me a few tips before I took my first call. You're ready?
Old days, English and Scottish...
Sort of work.
Oh dear, Gazza's still Gazza.
Yes.
He'll be all right.
Is that knee going to get in? Is he going to...
Not nearly, but in 10 minutes...
...fried omelettes like this, and they say...
Better than ever, yes.
Do you get good?
...the sail ring. A small clip of hair from his back marks this animal for relief.
Garages here that you can't get into.
Well, it seems most ridiculous.
Put it together, it looks nice.
And, of course, it's
We don't want this to happen.
Famine, it runs through the family. And it's the only job I...
It's breakfast time in the Asha.
Must suffice, and
Because we supposedly play games like this for fun and enjoyment. But
can I make some music? All right, I'll tell you what.
Fighter attacking, sir.
That is Philistine, cynical, conformist brat.
Calculated the cost at £2 million.
Inside. The government thinks it vital for public transport to help disabled people.
In fact,
And it's got a wire stretching between here.
and it's the target for which the work is required.
Night mouthpiece, just perfect for evening.
And their ability...
All a bit far-fetched? More of a danger to yourself.
The man now knew that this was to be his day after.
And then the doctor sort of emerges saying, oh, oh, oh.
TV programmes, all done live before the days of videotape.
They put their clowning into action.
And people have changed a lot since then.
Search of a use needn't be distractive only, and work proceeds.
Absolutely flat into a very small...
The fans, would it have had the same impact?
They order a drink from waiters in Wales.
3 times as hard work for us to put it right.
No, I've never worked under...
Almost every dive brings up something of value.
No, absolutely. It's his brilliance. It's his brilliance and his experience, is it?
The aggregate time for the team race was...
Superman's been around for 40 years. It's a very big deal in the States.
Out how the club was coping.
I couldn't publish it.
Why not?
Because it's not nice to the...
Quacky. One way I found was to have the microphone by your...
God hath chosen thee from all the world's great millions.
Concrete ramp.
Where we're heading.
The channel is...
PO, she's officially on the payroll. And for the last few weeks...
its customs and its social and sexual attitudes, Greece...
In case you didn't already know it, the Oggy is one of...
Then all I...
And then last year, when he was in hospital, having a hip joint done.
History of Rangers and Celtic, there's been an ugly side to the sporting rivalry. Sectarian.
Boilers. On this riddle, they're shaken out of their...
Curbside parking means a narrower roadway, a slower traffic street.
No, it is, at all. Copper dome thing.
Cuddled up to Floss just as if she was their real mother.
The only thing that she can't do for them...
And is the sexy Tina Turner on stage the same off or...
Varying kinds of deck. This is a wooden deck, which is faster.
With life.
Had to stand.
Last season, these were their figures.
Or many other operation in the house.
Seem to have lived something of a charmed life. It could be something to...
In a minute, you know, now...
Where would you think that would be a good place to wear it?
Gardens, and something else as well.
Tales of the folk of Dallas.
Which sounds very good, but when the people get there, it's really not...
At the Marlborough Street Employment Exchange. Here...
But nowhere nearly as successfully.
People are generally friendly.
And I found that he would more... It's rather beautiful language, I think.
But what you could tell...
You know, with the eye, they start the...
Dave, and I've unearthed a collection of interviews with some of the...
Mrs. Brewer of Bridgend says there were... A treble, a double...
Yes, ow.
Fight, where to go in...
I'll be with him wherever he goes. He bought me...
Fast to drive, to rewind. Cap and a sort of pair of jeans and something, and it's...
Let's see if he can swing him right over. Yes. Oh.
Perhaps absurd to stand...
As for the custom...
have been enormous. When you consider that to get this picture to you...
Gadget can't tell you who is trying to get in touch with you. The answer...
Better not. Boil onion.
Yes? Son in France got quite a shock this morning when he went out to check his cows. 14 of them.
There are the lugubrious cards.
They all agreed that the pictures were as good as ever.
And this time, of course, even the illegitimate.
And this he managed to avoid.
Well, this meant the main road would have sunk in very fast. A lot of it would be down
the gallery and cued music.
Gnomes again. Put 25p.
Now, some say that now microelectronics is so cheap, it's a revolutionary technology.
Plenty of room over the water. Once in low-level arrow, we'll...
Yes, has it been very difficult to establish yourself as a solo
Enormous boot. Inside, just here is a...
No, I'm not trying to frighten you, but this I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Time to make a light.
Inside the Liverpool Cathedral, they won't let us use. They won't let us...
We always say, when we're on a table...
On Howard.
Hang on, not so...
How long are you going to be with us this time?
Well, quite a while. I'm,
happy.
So I shall have to have another loose box.
I see.
Almost unparalleled in London's history since the Great Exhibition.
The sting is taken out of domestic hazards long before the families arrive.
Hampshire-Dorset border to buy their genuine Forestry Commission Christmas tree.
Experience with things that you have seen...
Brooders, and later to carry-on cages, where, in steadily diminishing room...
Not
And the stock that it's pulling behind.
And once you start on it, you've got to...
And I think...
Porter and stout. This is the mild, plain...
Bread and butter with it. Beans.
Went over, mind you, for an hour, Tom and I...
At their annual...
The club. Less than a year ago, he was suspended.
Can you tell me about this?
Well, there was a very attractive... Liechtenstein.
Yet for some older...
It's really more than I can stand.
Really? Yes. Have you ever added up how many...
In the corner at 48.50.
Summer ranges.
With the music, and what type of music? How do you decide that?
Speaking from old personal experience.
He's both loads of people.
Cards.
Literally.
Literally, yes.
Yeah, but
he's not feeding.
Sewage and telephone.
There was after his.
Go on, you see.
Simplicity is to be the keynote. The platform shoe is, of course, still...
He's wearing a miniskirt. She looks very nice now, I must admit.
They were looking for in the north of Britain or in Scotland.
Back in the 30s, when the Volkswagen was... John Barbarolli never got it as good as this. And certainly from what happened...
Like going to sleep. But most people, this is something that they can only...
And here we span nearly 40 centuries.
About a year.
About a year. And you collected it how? By just collecting the...
Didn't have the nicest voice.
6 of us to shoot 4 men.
One night that rather than race about empty-handed...
Selling tea and cakes, and they've got the advantage of a luxurious pun...
To do what we do, and I think the arts follow. They don't lead.
Nice to meet you. Port wing. One of the engines is there.
And has set in this way for exhibition over 1 million insects.
The other disadvantage with the traditional record sleeve...
Very easy. And what happens if he hasn't got enough space? Well, in that case, I...
However, that's not before...
Sales are planned. The newest, the Post House.
Technical note,
we were quite well off, I suppose.
Then clearly, Tent City isn't much to write.
Determined to...
I mean, Ned's got...
It really is freestanding.
The other loudspeaker, talking... Mighty selling point. At one time, the makers seriously considered supplying...
The strings to the eyes and the nose and the teeth. And Pauline has a belt round here with 2...
You earned a lot of money. Churchill was the same. The Beatles.
One of the problems that...
Got very poor levels.
Oh. What if it takes sugar?
I don't know. Oh, it's black as...
That's one thing.
Houses, plug-in connectors.
Land the company...
Doing badly, big fella. Good show. Popular. Successful. I mean, I don't like using the word...
And a television or monitor so that you can see what's going on.
What you need to do is to catch a train...
Henley, when the wind blows, a dozen characters display themselves for passing no...
Press button A.
Wealth. You notice she's wearing...
6. Does she do it every time the phone rings?
And Gloriana belonged to Blue Peter Badge winner Charlotte Ball. Now, Charlotte, if you could...
Collects in your... Small for the time of year, as timid as a mouse.
Really have the same power here. Was it a critical thing?
The vital question is which party do most cats prefer?
The real successful ones.
A second cinema opening in a few weeks' time.
Of no boots, so they can get...
Recordings themselves, afterwards hearing what they've spoken played back.
Right for the spot.
You suppose that this is what they call the abomination?
Those were organised parties of school children from Bristol and other nearby places.
It came out over a food. When I went to Holland...
Mind you, nowadays a phone is more...
A machine will provide it on the spot.
The step, we press the trident into the mud.
Looking forward to departing this earth as...
So you don't think that you're able to undercut them?
Also with us in...
is a glass...
a true reflection and doesn't reverse your image. So when you comb your hair...
Situation within the context of the fair.
Possibly English attitudes. If so, has the
chose life. Now, as well as learning to speak, and also, it's hoped, mastering...
And here were the animals. Right here.
When you heard the lyrics, permissive trade.
Coinciding with the news
that we are socialist.
Mr. Khrushchev.
Now, it's his second time.
32 times a lot of stuff.
You do it every year then?
Every year.
But it's the first two.
No. Let's get our...
The distortion factor on it is very, very low indeed.
Like bang.
Well, you see, when...
There were 400 ships queuing up outside Lagos, and most of them...
The true name of the...
From the high-powered and finely tuned hydroplane...
Think about death while you're driving in races?
No, not when I'm driving, but I'm very...
On the ground floor are the LPs.
Cheerful note, it will be less cold.
Psychological.
Cleaned, conserved and catalogued by a team of Dutch historians.
Had a few drinks, why not?
In a country which sees almost none for 9 months.
I dropped off a bit, and so I decided to...
In radio, most of these people were known for many years before.
British Telecom uses for its standard paging system. Right, I'll send the message now.
Rode the transatlantic single-handedly.
Yeah, well...
You're so...
No, it's not.
I don't believe it. Not Jerry. Jerry's my favourite.
I had just a plain prose.
Within living memory, trains arrived in the stream of life.
Has followed through his...
These shoes...
M-I-C.
One C, I beg your pardon.
It's not my day today, is it?
Opponents in these sounds, for instance, they've got rather a flat top and it would have sounded a bit weak here this morning.
And they also tell the girl in the front office. She keeps the account.
Of Shepherd's Bush. Well, the other two programmes tonight, which I didn't mention...
Beaches, and you haven't got to go very far.
I think you have to have a cover. So...
He's got...
On every wretched thing, more and more of it.
So, that's about the best way.
£5 a week, so £26 a year.
Yes.
Well, the average figure is £9.
The BBC didn't know what it had given birth to, and I suspect...
Stutter. Deformity.
Schoolboy creeping like snail unwillingly to school. He could never...
Of the charge accompanied by the tackle with the inside leg, and it comes...
Snow. It might be Christmas in Lapland. And then... As a centre for the sale of flowers and plants, Covent Garden is unequalled...
For the men, for the trip time and their lunch.
How did that come about?
Tell me about the troubles that this flea ran into originally.
Well, unfortunately, in 19... Right in the middle, there's the whole thing. Wait, if I want to sell the place for...
If he finds a job, it'll take 10 years, working even...
Didn't want to lose one of his most promising dogs, so he taught me.
The holy place is ready.
On the other side of this...
Seat of your pants, and even veteran owners have doubts about its roadworthiness.
A few hundred rounds through the gun,
Electrical discharges from the underlying brain.
Roll it around? I roll my own, yes. I may smoke a tailor-made cigarette weekend.
No, I didn't think I'd get the job, you know.
Expresses, please, for the moment, lads and lasses. Right, dial comp spelling error detection.
Irvine is a visual...
In the name of Liverpool FC, I would like to thank...
In London today, the 12 members of the Society of Snuff Grinders, Blenders and Purveyors...
I feel an up-tempo song must win it. Although how can you say that when...
And this shows you upside down.
He's got to support a family.
In her opinion, it is not suitable for children.
I want them to take responsibility, of course.
Thousands of passengers saw her each summer on her way to Ilford.
Designed to help astronauts, it's now being marketed as...
Very lucky, aren't they? Thank you very much.
Me with my mouth, as though we really are.
And the acting of the British cast. On the lighter side.
Woof.
All with traditional judges' stockings, said Lord Lane, is that while we...
the layout of the house.
And she said, yes!
Television.
Arrive on Long Beach. Each year...
1 million cubic yards a week. A fleet of 72 scrapers cut...
In 40 days of rain ever really occur. As a matter of fact, I have a feeling that...
You can see the construction. Each magnetic...
circle where the car can be driven at various steering angles. Instruments in...
But I'm not a...
Practically very difficult.
So I added a few ballads and...
Clerks deal with heaps and...
The BBC stages its own festival exhibition. All the varied activities...
Lovely.
Multiple aspect signalling boxes, because there you just...
So that gives them another 127.
Don't mind.
Well, now, from your side of the footlights, how did it go?
Cost of $12 million have already made a profit.
Do you think could now start coming into Britain at a cheaper price and which would find...
which contain a Japanese-English dictionary and the rules of grammar for both these languages.
And every time you're in France, you wish you had a colour movie camera with you.
Bells have been ringing in the nation.
And make tea.
An enormous amount of repetitive work to be undertaken, assembly-type work.
Action offered, sport for nearly 2 hours, or an absolutely nauseating...
Poison gas they were using. 1.5 hours after the explosion, the deck was still above occurrence, measuring a person's reaction to definition.
That has cost $150 million. In simple terms, almost...
They are very relaxing as they click together.
High sporting handlebars makes the bike look just like a real racing machine.
Morning, it was still dry. Its area equaling...
They don't like males very much. They're really, at this age...
They know that the only way to lose weight is to stick strictly to a diet.
Lord, I can nap home all the day. And with that...
that you pushed that bell, there was a lady of the town up there, but they were good citizens.
And the back rooms, too, are well stocked, with the whole...
Experienced fruit pickers are used in these experiments.
Louder.
I think Otto breaks himself up a lot.
And, of course, I have to give them my credit card details to pay.
Recorder in the usual way. But...
If you should ever go to Ireland for a...
Score, England 306 for 8. Bailey...
Over now with Edinburgh friends. They're wee, we're big. And it's always a wee...
Acids, fats and vitamins, so...
To do was to humanely put him down. And I called the Hunt Kennel.
Zurich of the period.
Be up to...
are good and go down well with readers, as do the adverts from cattle...
Around the country. In Bristol, Birmingham...
Personally, I think they look more attractive with a thick heel. And I'll try...
Because he lived here for 15 years.
Ended. And Durley, the best...
Appointed of Wolverhampton, who says...
I have recently watched the BBC production of Anthony...
The rider sits right at the back end here with these high...
They're all intelligent.
And to do that, they'll have to...
Brandy's got tremendous control of the ball.
Encountered the fuel crisis. We're beginning to...
Door, blessed by the vicar, and distributed...
The makers of this system...
Where do I get the milk from?
That's right. I mean, just...
Protons
to give you lots and lots
We're hearing a lot more of computer-performed music.
Taking it all in all, work and I get on fairly well, I see.
Everything here has got
Frost in many places. Tomorrow in Eastern...
of this on Earth, and does...
Mr. Young is the representative of...
This sort of taxi starts appearing.
What your intentions were? Did you mean it as a social...
How did it begin?
Houses by the furnishings, curtains.
This is the most amazing...
It isn't as bad as it was. Nothing like as bad as it was. And a lot of it takes...
Yeah.
L.G. Johnston of Little Gaddesden and Hertfordshire says this.
If the BBC wishes... Secure Goose squad has grown to 80.
Well, the noise that the geese make...
Here, it's a good thing I weren't undressed when you come in, wasn't it?
But the main advantage of digital TV is that the signal...
Any alcohol in my breath oxidizes it into acetic acid.
troop trial. Now, this rifle has been accepted...
Right, I think I'll go down there and rest. OK, have a nice rest. But listen, 19-year-old inventor is the son of a mine safety officer. He says...
Nothing doing today, I have...
Day of worship or a day of rest. A chance to relax.
But these were salvation.
Simply throw out figures somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000.
In that year when you were doing the deal.
Because this one's been... No, Shep, don't bite him.
Don't lose your balance, Berry.
You're dead right.
Easily.
Please. And, come on, reply to me. Ah, thank you.
Right.
Shot of a sun could revolutionise the way we...
You are. Yeah. He said that you collect...
An exciting scene, didn't...
How much television would we have left if we did that? I'd like to add to the list...
Do you actually sort of feel this in your bones?
Oh, absolutely.
They are still on their honeymoon.
But there are some...
A planner's delight. £1,000 in kit form, and it can be fitted with an ordinary...
Craftsman creates some of the best musical instruments anywhere in the world.
Of the need to come to some...
Are there plans to replace you with a proper band when you do live shows?
Never, ever, ever.
The wife will bear me out. The fish is absolutely nibbled the fish.
I find it rather difficult to understand why a person should want to spend hours...
For pensioners, there's not many...
Right. Straight the way through.
To be faster than ours, and they do pride themselves.
This is a rain detector, right? In case you missed that, that was...
Principal helpers, Dobbo, boozing companion, general factor...
Underground station.
Them big goods like that, stay...
There'll be a type of people to be rather homely and sort of...
So, you'll now compare the players' great
cameras. You need all this.
The BBC realised that during the summer, for 10 pence, one can buy half...
We do not best...
Attempt to just to explain...
Miss out a couple of programmes. Here's a...
We're a little disappointed.
So that's still a secret, is it?
Yes.
And I've come out of hiding a bit because I very much want to do it.
Take off a final check with the control tower.
Time for tea, does it?
Blend of Erica's cattery.
More like a poof.
Hygienic, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it finds its way into the dustbin rather than into the music.
So yourself, and you're not cutting down?
No.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. You know, and people are just meandering around, looking at this and the other. Next thing, suddenly they get a
Go ahead and jump.
Come up behind me.
But what's this? The C.G. Allen communicates by shortwave.
But this is a particular good stable.
Knowing that whatever the evil, Superman will save... It can be eaten. Environment experts aren't totally convinced because it means...
Mild. Busy trying to have judgments upheld. Things at the bottom.
All sorts of ways, you know.
What does your husband think about
This is the BBC Home and Forces...
Yet exceedingly manoeuvrable.
To be resigned to it.
Still happy with the town as a whole. So Cumbernauld New Town...
We're trained on the theory of the
the foreign...
To resemble anything from a mini to a road.
I hope.
Get ready to fire. The cock is brought back to the full position.
I think it's harmful in the least. To the contrary, it probably does.
Or composition.
Is that the sale of this occult gear pays for the society.
For me, when you go home nowadays to your parents' house...
Private yachts, and they're lucky to see one a week, but the
stone being dropped into place. This Wiltshire rooftop had...
Cord, side.
Don't really work anymore.
Oh, no, I love it. I love it, yes. I don't know what I'd do.
Yes, or do the Times
crossword.
Build up. I'm a loser and feel like shooting your opponent.
Well, I wore this suit because I'm 40 this year, and I thought this is what you...
For anyone who wants a slightly more glittery car...
I discovered that the colour was in fact light blue, so the model had to be re...
On £370, £370 bigger.
Okay.
Ashbid Lazouche and Budley Salterton, Lynai Festiniog and Balakulish.
Everyone's going to get interested all of a sudden because he dies, and then...
Major Massey, the bagpipes man from Trafalgar Square.
Take out protection or something.
He hasn't influence.
I mean, just...
See all these things all around
And this is the...
Does it go for its programmes?
Australia, New Zealand, any...
Now, I believe that you're offering...
console here with the computer.
Could you explain in more detail what you mean by a run?
Just rambles on, taking his audience by the...
In the suburbs of London, the capital was given a new lake. Yesterday morning...
Queen Mary was known as one of the great queens of the Atlantic. North Atlantic...
Them during the war.
20 years later.
Yes.
All we've got to go on is the guest.
Cambridge edition of Shakespeare, in which he...
Pounds stretch...
Yet it will still go on taking messages.
People, the evening hours. In a
serious source of bugs. It's called Gurgal.
It is, in fact...
Gave me his loot and said, here, copy this.
For many people, the owning and sailing of small boats is becoming an increasing...
So I can open up that folder simply by clicking...
It is the death...
Well, I don't know myself.
One with skill enough to fly it high and with a bit of
Bashing with a hand.
Oh, dear. Opening film should have given you some clue about who the new member of the Blue Peter team...
Shown it several times in the process of...
So there were 5.
No one...
The game's manufacturer, Sega, which says no one gets mutilated...
Out in the woods where she thought nobody'd see her.
They're saying that I'm vile and obscene. Do I look vile and obscene?
Alloy rings through which the rope is...
Improvement they seemed to be enjoying was just too good to last.
At his age, no.
Quite warm in the excitement of a swimming race. And
he would have written Coronation Street, and they've written a very...
For your dull ass.
Begin this recording. Put that into pause.
We're going to combine the two...
Department of the Environment. Only in that way, they say, will the owners of so...
And what you did, you came down and you...
Home without paying duty.
In keeping with their tradition of fair play, these...
Why are you here?
For to see a flying saucer.
Why have you come... Who's got a...
Us into position. This monster was just too big to be lifted all in one.
Glimpse on the series of the... dodging bombs. It's just not true. This is like...
And treated them just as if they were her own puppies.
Well, this is really very extraordinary.
There's a dial round there, and you've got the receiver and thing you talk through.
Home if you want. This 86-year-old pensioner first...
to Piccadilly.
By then.
And what are the chances of that?
Very good. Very good.
A good idea to have a woman newsreader in television. Now, this one...
Without insisting that they earned their spurs first.
And above all, the armed militiamen.
And they've arrived here just as quick as...
I buy the Beano, same day. And I find that
only on good weeks.
If you're confronted with an angry shark. Now, BBC television's most famous children's there.
No, very...
I've noticed, or not noticed, that by clapping...
If the age of the gentle bouncer has dawned, then these men are its...
Fast an irritation with interviews in general and a positive allergy to one.
Magnified several hundred times.
Theatre is now more prevalent on Broadway than...
been going around saying the BBC...
Out of the 1907 Norton at a...
When the boss is going out
for
lunch.
Certainly, but much more.
His talent...
A comedian, we're meant hard to. He doesn't say whether it was from the young lady from Bude who went...
The young, thrusting...
And I thought that...
The Return of the Sun has a... Comics say there will be a few issues to explain what happens after Superman's death.
Being able to respond quickly...
The world in...
This popular, which is...
...to some puppies, but it is extremely rare. And one of the nice...
What are your names?
The important thing from our point of view is that the first time ever... Night, and guess the night before, gonna get guessed tonight...
I'm going to bring it round. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Designed to make it easier to find a pilot who's floating in the water from the air. Also makes it easy for
The flow. Now, when this thing...
Left hand and draw with the other one. Can you see what's happening, Tara?
And goes on down the line. Each girl does her little bit.
And so on.
Right up just up against the glass. You can really not avoid them.
Don't suddenly push the roof off, and if you've got a long-distance lens, you can afford to...
Financially at the moment...
I think I remember all of them lying about the house when I was a boy.
Then just slide down. Just inch your way down. 6 inches...
Brandy, a 4.5-year-old Jack Russell...
...time of year, as he tries to protect the weaker twin lambs from the elements.
Beck marks this animal for release for another year in his forest.
Something like that, probably.
In touch with the Flash Gordons as well in this.
Meeting when meeting, a star shines upon us.
Present Margaret Bristow with her cosmetic...
The London General Cab Company with 200...
To be the last time their ancient ritual will...
Oldham won a Britain in Bloom contest. They were rather surprised, but the
female cat...
are coming into their own again, and so are the crowds of experts gathered round the auctioneer's ring.
British school children to grow as parts... It's always had a fairly adult audience.
The game's 19-year-old inventor is the son of a mine safety officer. He said...
We have doubled in Manchester.
The Raymond.
On 5 top-class players from Fulham.
Television is not doing this at the moment, and this is what it should do.
Could I say this on this?
But generally...
The shoes of the blacksmiths who built the Comet's engine.
He hasn't been at the ground. He...
Nice car. Absolutely...
Very important is internationally.
Medicinal bottles, those are the green and the blue ones which you may have seen. Now,
Yes, you've got to do everything you write about, every bloody...
If you couldn't afford John Archibald's local scotch...
So John went out...
Enormous craze in the United States. In fact, between 1974...
Put your dress, Susan. Extend to arabesque on...
Canes that make a corkscrew look straight. Even the...
But there is this...
Distill like...
houses and expose the found...
Right. Cabbage, sprats...
And in our shop.
What about this island itself, James? What do you like about living here?
World is a lot of moonshine, blue or silvery,
out of date, and that today's busy housewife needs one-stop shopping.
Oh, inside the boot is a little tin.
Icing it to drink in it.
Years to rot away. Popcorn doesn't.
It's a modest.
To the centre of town, having finished your picnic and your free municipal...
6 bicycles.
There's a canteen roll. Out come the thoughts and the non-thoughts.
places for people from Ulster looking for cheap booze. According to...
A company in Holland has come up with a greener and tastier...
I don't think we were better or worse.
Self in it. He longed to get back to where he could...
Well, I don't want to drink any, none of that. I've got something better for...
If the landlord wouldn't buy it...
Well, the fish...
Fathers are settling a problem in the usual manner. A jolly good sectarians.
The raising of all the national flags, the teams assembled in their uniform.
Yes, at the ground. And you sing also when the band appear in other places.
Indeed, yes.
Not at all.
You hopeful of doing that?
No.
For them, the lady launchers of Dungeness have had their fair share of...
Putting a much larger coin box in the machine.
I explained that they were safety windows, supposed to be 6 times...
Lord Strathcarron was among the competitors.
Now, this is the difficult bit, so some people say, but it's really very easy, right?
Well, with Montgomeryshire being closed on a Sunday, naturally we get 1 or 2 from over the border.
Thing to be rebuilt.
Lots of you have emailed and called in asking...
4 hours, she'll have replied to every one of these letters.
The row that the airplanes make, I mean, the children sort of come running to...
BT don't see why they shouldn't also...
40 miles away from the gloss of...
Oh no, an ordinary magnet is very well known, everybody's familiar with it, it attracts...
I was playing in a jazz band, and I had 2 records of yours, one was...
7 times the speed of an artillery shell. There's
emptying the ashtrays to chucking out drunk.
Entertainment, please give order for a most...
...being made to take it over by Scotland.
Quiet street, but then I suppose all orders and rules are...
The airlines have an order.
Has the most beautiful pair of feet and ankles.
Sponge that you trimmed away, and for each leg, cut the sides.
Uniform, and I like the company all around him.
The fact that it does tend to mimic, and my goodness, we've seen
a good British breakfast. But instead, the evil is spread.
Closed, and their youngsters were having to go by bus.
And there's more room inside. The government thinks it...
Hit it. It closes...
So will they accept their fictional counterparts and the make-believe world of Albert Square?
An area like this.
I've got a brand new pair of roller skates.
I take it, or I believe, that...
And was also on show today. She'll appear with Peter Davison.
The Lancasters.
I've been drunk before, and the boy...
In intensity. Some nights it's...
Arthur, the whence and whither.
The classic cut.
Preserving food, but until now nobody's been able to find a commercial...
Good, and there's a local one in West Sussex.
Sets round the room in which the party's being held.
It's early days, isn't he?
The post office itself is on me feeling.
And what made you decide to...
Like mince and potatoes. Mince and potatoes.
That you're seeing, never repeat them.
We then have formed a kind of...
Shaking. And...
understand the job as well as me. You could treble the turnover.
Time.
Inside this press, they can produce pressures equal...
...had cast doubts on their motives and honesty.
And the parents, both sets of parents, they were big...
Actually no breaks. And I remember going up...
A year there, when I knew I couldn't stay in the Indian Army, I went to a college in Madras.
This royal throne of kings.
Because
That it's just that I do think it's easier to carry on than to be strong about it and say I'm...
Puts real words into the mouths of plasticine models. The conversation was recorded...
When Katrina... Pig, let me speak his praise, is no...
India, not to India, to Australia once. From a controller.
Still has to be terrible.
Good musicians to back me up, but...
Having his hands in his pockets, whereupon they were...
Institutions rigged like machines, and it can't be done. Do you still know...
Well, how much did that particular one there cost?
When the Web magazine analysed...
countries, and those countries which are without them will suffer by comparison with those that do.
...is not only different, it's strange, because what he realises is...
that really prevents me getting any...
And...
Yes, but...
They call fast food centres. But...
The cost of travelling by bus to go... Present-day subsonic aircraft. So the aim of this experiment...
BBC was made responsible for Britain's first public television service.
All the gear that he sees on Top of the Pops, etc. And
we find that they do survive.
Have you ever come across a flea that...
And so does the local vet.
They're regularly exercised.
Indeed, arch number 185 was free and could be rented by anyone who actually wanted.
Purposeful existence, Michael.
Instructions on how to build in your own...
Oak boughs that they have cut...
Why should otherwise respectable people commit...
like this.
And he asks permission and help our own industry to...
How? By selling her in public. Whether a...
The pearly king and queen of black rice.
New bend where you might have to reverse to get...
It was like, because he's kid.
Biggest of the new television sets is...
It was Mr. Jones who urged the Egon Ronay
orders of not being agile.
When we met you last night, we're looking very different. I just wondered if the image...
Shame to see a lovely branch like this go...
Much for a city to have a main street like this. A Grand Canal that's not...
This week, the scaffolding came.
Are you ready for the picture book?
It's been computed that when the signal from that...
Now, I wanted to meet Cher really bad. Lou Adler...
Twice a week as a matter of habit.
Let me select the area which I want to copy.
Oh, a caste system, like the British Raj had, you know.
Won't read them to you.
Architecture, which I think goes far beyond anything you could say of men.
Well, this happened once more later.
The order for 50 of the...
And interpret emotions. Bees are big.
Sixpence, shilling, half a crown, the head on top and the tail below. Breakfast will be served, and that means...
looking after sick birds, and she said she'd give Pavlova...
Old, and the oldest man left in the market feels the spring in the
street, and these things are...
Manchester, what one Dan, Sir Humphrey Gale, at their...
Automation, it's a frightening word, a nightmare word, this idea of...
Junior boys also lend a hand.
They ended up in the staircase.
So just come on and tell your stories.
You'll find...
Some plastics are...
I don't know quite how to put it.
Buffalo Creek.
So it's just a matter of attitude, I think.
And it's the sexy Tina...
Cleaning lady can fuss around the desk, sweeping and tidying.
You can see whizzing round, shows you the direction to kick the ball. So kick, and it goes up.
David's portrait of Napoleon crossing the Alps. It's not difficult to see that.
And that is the whole...
With an equally...
possible. These we've called the direct method, the earth orbit.
And we believe...
Okay, fine. Whereas on...
And what's more, when you turn the Rorem up...
And TT at 140 miles an hour is really doing basic research.
In the manner of Armstrong. That's Vickers Armstrong.
Oh, yeah. I've got a spare span.
The mountains of the Welsh border.
The mail would arrive by mule train.
You knew that was going to happen.
Difficult to spend.
Then I remembered I always liked Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
It's intensely civilized and...
I think most of the women, well, especially around where we come from...
Horizontal and then the vertical axis.
Actually emerged from one of the most somber...
Craft would replace the fairing that I've shown on there. Two of these...
Standing on their own giant feet now, these monsters are...
That a piece of dialogue will work. It's here in the recording theatre where the whole thing begins to... Clap!
They were utterly illegal.
Actually, his job as a civil servant.
Are you a big eater? Do you think...
...of tearing out the loser's heart. Well, yourself, you're not a...
Put the backside on by mistake. Shame that, wasn't it?
This model is named Elsa.
Synthesizer, which was developed in
Newcastle studios, we have Mrs. Williams sparking a Ford Transit.
That parts every year about this time. Is open to doubt, but it looks bloodthirsty enough.
Oh, very good. Where?
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Mike.
This is a cabin...
Flies, but after...
4-inch telescope quicker than that.
No.
Which normally would collect the light from the bulb and send it...
There's nothing a group of Yorkshire folk like better than a...
Out of the city? No, I'm in it. One of the remarkable facts about the city...
A title card on that picture that says, made in 10 days by a 21-year-old for $60,000.
It is quick.
This is...
The Comet, 9:45 from London to Manchester,
yes.
Returning on the...
If any, are to be made.
The machine is now organised so it's producing a half...
Back as 61 BC.
Moved not block by block, but as little as square by square, giving much smoother move.
Well, thanks for the welcome, but who are you? We live here.
Scripts to take over from us in case things go.
I think it's worried that if the European...
already. Not at all. We could use perfectly conventional...
Again, completed models and also a certain amount of parts.
First love, we share...
V-shaped affair, like this.
Not Jerry, why?
And finally, a good...
We're fine. Then the second lot came through like that.
My name's Bond, James Bond, and I'm licensed to kill.
You maybe help...
Trocula lets you do two jobs at once.
It's wonderfully exciting. I mean, it's a one...
Advances. I even have to...
Observation. The operator scribbles on the tube.
To the Enterprise.
Here you can put your feet up and relax and...
Fitted with a tiny shock absorber there.
Most stupefyingly boring job.
The artificial orchard is adjusted to the picker's picking speed.
Which is quite good, you know, really.
What is a good computer game? What makes a good computer game? What the kids...
In use in Britain are made abroad, yet robotics is an industry with a double benefit.
Say, because it is the only one of its kind in the world, it is top secret.
Any number of balls.
There are changes of that kind.
London Airport. The plane, the Bristol Brabazon.
In the way the noise, you can't get the atmosphere if you're just...
And then I came back again the next...
Asked me to explain all... That's all. On the shoulder.
Well, I think from my own experience...
His banner bearer, the halberdiers, and the pioneers.
Hello, Multicolour Swift.
Yeah, I have correspondence to prove that...
The Postmaster General cut a ribbon.
Record companies, and by raising the price of tickets to...
You're good for this.
I went from stage to stage. First I had just this working.
I've had come to help judge the entries.
Look at half the letters and invent most of those that you use. And all you do is...
Do you think it's a job that a woman can do just as well as a man?
The computer... I think it's great fun to have the lamb working with them, and...
Small piece here, which is the Apollo...
Where he took his PhD in chemistry. He went to Ottawa in 1958. It was intended.
It's been a great day. I'm excited.
Security system, and
but alas, despite there being many, many more areas that could
Beautifully coloured.
Driver.
When Brackles from FC were offered a small grant that it was decided.
Yes, it's much more difficult actually with your...
Say 6 feet.
Of a lot of places in England. I think when I go on an away trip with Newcastle United...
But then I suppose all orders and rules are...
Found himself in a palace like this. The galleries knew northern...
Take approved shots one by one and trace them.
Is the size of the machinery. Nowadays, you can get a long...
Poodle parlour, note said. At last, a chance to meet the board of directors.
Yes, I think, gentlemen, we can agree there...
Alton Cross, Howard, and he's...
Well, it's very difficult to... separate...
To behaved. Hopefully, they'll confine themselves to sampling the local...
Detrimental effect on the knitting industry.
It's marvellous.
now, to synchronize the light show to the disc...
Sparky's trainer and Sparky.
Makes the right sound when you snap it. Different blends of chocolate.
60 years, and has set...
From hissing Sid.
And was taken from real life. But what happened to it then was the work of two young...
They shared a common motivation to start an island.
But at £25,000 each, it'll be a long time.
Well, that is in effect 250.
Let's see how we go. Right.
2/3 of mashed potatoes, and I'm about to try and see what it tastes like.
I haven't done...
The pub of the future, Mark I. All these barges are privately owned, and many of the...
True Etonian politeness were inclined to apologise, since...
Will you go ahead, please, Ivor? Will you go ahead with your report?
Pierre and Pedro.
less time-consuming
of London. Today, the London Coster is your perfect gentleman. Grand.
Television takes to the road in Britain's first television coach. 4 areas.
40 cycles per second, I know that I'll have middle stations.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oliver Reed, international
steering is through the rear wheels. That's what makes it just a touch tricky. Powerless failure. Scientists have revealed this interesting fact and are proposing what they claim.
A couple of verses for me.
What of?
Really good players in the most important positions in the field.
Obviously, the team that come over.
In fact, I think I remember making something rather similar in a physics lesson.
Line to the Prestel computer, and as soon as we dial it up
and they got their feet
with mainline coaches on.
0.9% of letters carry postcodes.
Well, almost.
I better be getting on.
From all sides, you see its character. But one should not put up their shop fronts. They've erected these signs, which has cost them 2,000.
Of you young chums out there.
They're quite entitled to a car. They're entitled to their...
During a storm, and then fermented on the grass in the rain, making a pretty strong brew.
Right in the heart.
Well, it says take it off.
Manimal.
That's you and the bull terriers. I see.
Our expectations, however...
All right, don't.
Much about it, no.
...had to be paid by everyone to the...
Golf course, you'd only be able to get, maybe 40...
Hello, children.
Saying that competence and discretion and a bit of practice can work miracles.
It would cost you as little as £8, but a sophisticated job like this one...
Basket. Every year she's...
But unfortunately...
Their spare time at the local pub, it's taken 2 years to complete. In fact, when in...
Bloke have an occasional win.
Well, there's one thing I don't quite understand. You would say...
Future. An interplanetary cliffhanger that undoubtedly made eager...
There are some days in the nation...
The old days when the radio show drew up to 500,000 visitors are over.
When we have quite a few, we have our little... I see that one reviewer yesterday rather waspishly described...
Intricately made, yet standard issue for the soldiers of their...
Hurling dirty great stones.
Was coming on me. I take a...
If you get them from a Tata, you usually get fairly cheap prices on them because they're not in very good condition.
Officials at the headquarters of the London Transport Executive were negotiating...
Science museums are taking them up. We have the machine.
You can test the legend for your...
Purity, we cannot possibly convey it to others.
Young. A big brother at boarding school is every inch a hero.
One. And you find it? Oh, yes. That is all.
The real old Cornish mine.
Radio Times had a very special role. To help the listeners, they published a map.
Now, first of all, I have to wake the shoe up, and then plug it.
This is George Square in the heart of Glasgow.
Long ago, become intolerable for...
One here, another down here.
They pick up.
Standing, the Trust tries to leave them so.
Not surprisingly, perhaps, the craze started in the...
World data centers. One of these...
I'm singing songs the way a panto should be.
Yes.
Itself find any part of the training for going into space or the journey itself, particularly...
There is more money...
Of everything I'm saying, and I'm through talking.
Is this...
Businesses, 30 to 50-year-olds.
An audience. Champions of Fun, King Kurt, invited to join the party at the fridge.
Camera shag on this, yeah? So you go north, south, east and west and...
I think a woman's body...
People always ask that. I mean, there's a certain amount of self-censorship and a certain amount of things the IBA just won't run.
In 1937.
And there's your pocket money gone for 10 shillings.
Made human sacrifices here was also, incidentally...
The milk bottle tops.
Get divorced and...
Were you snapped up by other soap operas when you finished?
Because since that time, we have seen the consequences.
In that respect. Well, goodbye.
That during the summer for 10...
For about 2 months.
To them for...
She took the card I wanted to, and I...
Right, Walter, if you'd like to put it on your head...
It was just murder to send them up in a machine like this.
Nintendo's up against Sony with their PlayStation 2 and Microsoft with the...
Shooting galleries. I'm firing not bullets, but...
This indicating.
They're off.
Very, very warm welcome to the all-action, all-leaping...
P.C. Morgan, now here to sing for you.
Production, and will be replaced by this popular.
And at the top, this one would be used for survey work because you've got this very high observation.
This cardigan came from Gloriana here, who's a Pyrenean mountain dog.
Yes, we are.
Towards the end of the bout, both joined forces against the referee.
That would not be as consistent as we would hope for. And
it was only a fraction of...
Meaning bitterly that the video release of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, is different from the version...
Mr. Spooner, why can't you put in a phone for Nurse Barnett and...
To a part of the capital where caps are said to be more fashionable. What?
At my age, I was definitely more...
Do you know a lot about computers?
You villain. Great too, Cliff.
May I say thank you very much indeed.
Such drastic action suggests that the video boom was no more than a fool.
The secret lies in the design of the system, which can be...
There's double-sided tape, there's a new magnetized...
And something between 15 and 20 minutes.
And yet Billy isn't a stand-up comedian in the usual...
Thing we can see...
For controlling the hand grip itself. Now, these signals...
May was ordered...
Not because he's a poor man or a working man, he's just entitled to have a car.
University. There's nothing...
Desk. Again...
There's people abandoned us that are saying that I'm violent.
It rather puzzles me, this one.
What's this one here? Can you see her?
Perfectly ordinary.
We sincerely hope that something can be done because...
He told her that he had been not far from his...
Want a bigger share of the oil than they fought so impressively.
Best man in the southeast. If so, there's a chance of a part in a new...
This confectioner's and toy shop does the...
It goes underneath the felt coat he's wearing.
What appealed to me was that George Lucas, who wrote it and also directed it.
But I mean, I just pinched your bottom now. Do you think that's wrong?
In case of a...
No, must have polished that glass a little too hard. This...
Well, up here with you. Just one more thing now.
George always carries a couple of racing pigeons.
Very skilled job, and unfortunately... President is Mr. Keith Stevens. As a warrant holder...
And now, under United's new manager, Frank O'Farrell, he seems...
had decided to boycott the whole of the week's merrymaking.
I'm going to have to...
Boiling water ready for the hops. Later comes the fermenting yeast.
I believe that my music should be part of that texture of natural sound.
When the weather's suitable, the classroom goes outside.
Found objects.
This hand... And retransmit the pictures into their homes through their own cable link.
Cheers.
Well, I hope that you'll like television, and also, for your sake, the television...
But there's another side to it.
Unbelievably frightful. It's intolerant, chauvinistic, bigoted, ignorant.
We have money on Saints' Days. And I thought we're just...
I can't put anybody around there to tell them. They're asking for the bouts, let them.
Do a hard hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, real hard slog.
Yes.
Another holiday, and this was from a paper in this particular...
On with Jonathan King.
To be nines on this board, where it would...
...were some of the archaic 19th century rules and regulations, which...
Again...
Too large for his hat, and he never does anything right.
For example, if you ask a man where the post office is, he...
This is what the little tiny loop is.
Visitors from Bristol and Manchester and retain...
Able to get over that, would you?
I think that would give me a headache.
The ear doesn't respond equally.
Object spotted over North London.
Putting it through the local authority estimates. That can take a year or 18 months.
End of the house to the scullery or washroom.
Now...
Milk. The very first one that was...
After clams, you know, and consequently,
Marked by turmoil and challenge and constant struggle and huge.
The conventional oven. Now, I'm just about to try chicken merengue.
Go on. And darkness...
And your turn.
Of course, this system is...
The pig is of...
No, you kind of go... Yeah, when I was talking to...
Get divorced.
This, but in fact the concrete terrain here...
These air passages that you made,
help the water to drain away.
Charts for every possible make of car. Where to grease it?
My last job, I tried to get into a hostel.
Even the roses grow on a...
We had the heartbeat.
Track Sunseekers. Well, the British Naturalist Council search Britain for...
That he was selling by the thousand.
To make inquiries. So I went to see the owner of the property.
The house, there's a storeroom. The latest design has a door from this leading into the
cavalry regiment. We're looking at Oliver.
Where individual governments are, the technology.
We love our Queen. We have told Buckingham.
Right, I'll be there straight away. There you are, Val. That's a good start.
Okay.
Some of the lowest wages in America.
It's open only to the trade. And this huge industry...
The way.
Did he live up to his pictures?
Yes, I certainly do.
The Queen Mary has just completed her yearly overhaul in dry dock at South...
Cradle of Erica Bruce's house is the bedroom where the meow continues.
Tony and I were more concerned...
Public attention. Except that, strangely, the public are...
Converting a horse's stance means a whole series of adaptations. Leg and...
holds no mystique. And she passes by.
Here and way out check.
We have to...
How many letters we had from you last year? 3, 1...
Never seen Mr. Fisher.
Pound weight. A good fish supper. There you
That's your opinion.
Being to see what's happening and to work his muscles.
Each a day, so you can work that one.
In some ways...
Each time the light flash...
On the basic model, you can add robot bodies to it and various controls.
battery, which then powers the watch move. Stripes and spots, look at the lovely flower pots.
In the series.
Yes. This is...
The fun.
Oh, we have interesting people, teachers...
Of our members, salaries £3,250.
Feeding on fruit, which is handed to him by Tim Vinal. His movements are very slow. Concentrated beer. Well, it would save a fortune in transport costs. That is, if you...
To change channel. What with the teachers?
Is putting out another series of repeats at the end.
They got the kangaroos, yes. Stage fighting. A move in Yulegreave, but its effect on the team.
Exploit food put out for garden birds.
Drama groups, for example.
To kill. There's a...
English barn, you're only about...
Come anywhere close
to finding traction is to...
I seem to think I was trying to... His epitaph.
What?
Don't worry, unduly, if...
Game at the moment, you're wrong.
I am indeed.
Nagoya in Japan. Mother city of something which began as a...
The trade. Did I just kill it a bit? Okay.
Assembly tilts forward. When he accelerates, he's forced back into his seat.
It is the boa constrictor being passed off as an asp. If this is the sort of thing we're paying a 34... Done.
Card on Wednesday. The internet also has a more down-to-earth competitor.
I felt that I was eminent...
Suck or blow air into the ground at the turn of a switch, and literally make...
It's a cross between a motorcycle and a lorry.
The people of Blidworth in Nottinghamshire went last Sunday to their parish church.
63-year-old friend.
For him in a moment. First of all...
It and doing all kinds of things. And it's pretty ugly most of...
Going straight at the glass pane, bouncing off, and landing with a bump and a squawk.
But my own feeling is that, like a good deal of modern...
Because this afternoon, some of our members, salaries...
Place, a less noisy place to be in.
Yes, definitely.
Would you be prepared to spend more of your money?
By the way that they...
Confirming his price. £64,388.
That's it. I've got all the way through the interview. Isn't that...
And a great...
To where, which...
Do you ever have any trouble?
I would like to, Mama, and...
Act out your favourite space game through a kind of electronic...
6 feet apart, and pointing to the place where I'm going to sit, which is...
It's rather fun. They come out of one box, another...
No estate workers of any... Fishing, clay pits, holiday resorts, and cream. The Oggy must be one of the best.
answer to it is, in fact. Have you had any peculiar complaints from the public?
Heavy chatting up, we haven't.
And on the whole, I kept...
To be vital, lively and credible.
Museum and the Naval College. But what I like...
That his judgment of true ownership...
Really? Now, I've heard all sorts of talking birds...
But Gamarellis will make 3 different sizes, in the hope that one will meet the measurement.
Interesting.
Interesting?
Yeah.
The clock switch strike in China, of course, are particularly difficult because you can't turn them back.
For you to browse through. The great...
On getting the upper hand. So spraying just... Tower Bridge.
They can be equal with...
For painting, or I come up here and read and...
It in fact starts this colour, sort of jaundice yellow, and it's not likely to catch...
It was a very illusory moment, because that's the moment when trouble really begins, when you think you've got it plotted out.
They're out in the open a bit. Oh, that's T11. That's the sister of the one you caught just...
Look down for your footholes first.
But the squad was still at full...
An essential part of the ceremony.
Pop's orchestra.
Streets. And our safety...
Leading us into new generations of products. And there's...
Masters left, other numbers to be added.
Has been demolished.
But while much of the Dublin...
emphasised...
the unshod. Well, because it takes the...
One of the most famous Henry V was Richard Burton, who was the real McCoy, but I think having a bit of...
But even on this mill...
Like Tarzan.
Hold on that, will you? You are going to help me demonstrate a...
Certainly, when...
Much loud music could...
And 6. Casing the joint doesn't cost a penny.
He asked you and not me.
In 1973...
Easy to pick up from the street or in slab...
Programme and wouldn't go on that.
Well, a sense of curiosity, a certain...
Above the Scottish average, but road safety figures are excellent, thanks to the planner's policy.
12-foot-high model of the Tower of London.
Run, I should imagine, for a long time in London. Do you think it would go down well in the provinces? You're an old...
Keep lying asleep in a field.
How does a veterinary surgeon...
That's why.
Because there's no one to declare it to.
Yes, I know. You have...
What age descriptions do,
Of how he was proposing to treat his visitor.
Eating is the same as last year's.
pottery of this culture is unmistakable when...
The rod might have been, say, at that angle. I just mention this because sometimes we are...
You know, but cast cameras under realistic conditions.
Some that you've written, haven't you?
Yes. It doesn't seem to me to be that...
I thought it was very old-fashioned, the song. It was kind of 60s protest.
Speed of 36.22 miles an hour.
Already the Guild has built...
Penny has meant just what it says.
Inside the mound, inside the huts.
Electric cell, which is exposed when I pull the trigger.
And it seemed to work.
What was it? Was it face pulling, falling?
Complete with all mod cons. It's fully carpeted and furnished.
As a broad brush examined...
Poor, tiring work. Massive enough for a country.
In all sound engineer would face. Ideally, you see, he likes to...
Mother and her child. 5 weeks...
11 feet.
I rather feel that I live in this kind of a...
An electronic blackboard.
It's rather beautiful language, I think.
No, yeah, that's a great deal of money for an industry, which is...
So the game breached copyright, but the company lost the case.
Because, you know, if the comic...
Driftwood.
Yes. Television transmitting aerial.
I thought, so we'll have it for jealousy. I said, I'm jealous of anybody else playing the piano. There's the idea.
Well, no, in the red data book, which you...
He was suspended for 2 weeks by Sir Matt Busby for missing training.
Though technology has improved Valentine communication.
Double the circulation in the Manchester area.
He had 1 or 2. Yes.
He's, I think, definitely a bear who looks...
Much...
And sort of a running order.
That portrays to the viewer what...
Between the nations of the world.
Tremendous effects in the film.
Yes, and you know, they take...
The strength of it.
In a curtain being drawn or a blind being drawn.
And that's it.
Take in and be very careful that they bring them out.
Head breaks surface.
Yes, very low.
Would you say it's a hot weather dish?
Yes.
In this little Nottinghamshire church, the age-old tradition lives on, with the purification.
First turning right.
The computer doesn't
And playing the Doctor, and certainly the early Doctors were all played by older chaps.
In dramatic style, there's been so much rumour and speculation about the
premises, the places where youth tend to congregate. Bars and
2,500.
Ever shot could be viewed instantly in your...
4 pairs of spheres there, which move up and down. If I took...
And what we're doing when we say about the edge of the wine...
Of course, generally in the direction of informality.
Let's go.
It is a religion with me not to let a person...
Distinctive sort of face, hasn't it?
You think a 13-year-old Rolls-Royce would be a match for the tough professional...
Pounds, which planted it firmly. The computer is then responsible for sending out the signal, which will only activate...
These are their cars, and a bigger park is planned for them.
Today, the Pool of London...
Should this happen before 8:30, or more junctions are held at a different temperature. Unfortunately, thermocouples aren't.
The new £2 coin unveiled...
And the secret lies in new instruments that have given full control of technology.
And we can coat it.
I thought that perhaps we wouldn't on the team. I know I...
Some of a political meeting these...
Hot tea to it, drop by drop.
Vital in as much that... This machine alone can...
Calculated, and good luck to them. And I think it's very much something that the businesses...
I reckon the dull one's all right if you want to do a sort of background. I think...
On this end, here's the wash.
Every week we will be here at this time for the next 7 months.
What's wrong with using their fingers like they used to?
A view from...
Her famous novel, Cranford.
You may not...
The discussion. They talk about the matches, the fouls, the incidents.
Well, I'm doing it because it's my...
Workers in this assembly department in a big electrical engineering firm are women.
No, there's...
...on inching up a flake and to his right.
Me that the adrenaline's still pumping.
Life, but it really makes a lot of sense.
Hi, my name's Dan.
By deceiving the innocent. This is the thing for two.
Design team.
Short is just like the video cassettes. A number of different and incompatible...
Almost like a chunk of concrete.
Well, would you welcome children coming into the pub?
Romance. The Arabian Nights to the Western, from the Knights of the Round Table to science fiction and space fantasy.
And you'll find that...
Oh, what would you rather drink?
This, when you push the blade into the lid of the tin...
I would approve, really, if you came through the front.
Married too soon. That's the only reason.
...when his crops. He tried everything. All the traditional methods.
People are particularly fascinated with the blade.
Now everyone's happy, and even on hot and...
We're keeping our minds all the time.
Get up the track, everybody. Let me tell you what, man.
Pat. Yes. Well, there we are. We're all ready to go. So...
Your pocket!
The Speaker told Mr. Atkinson to go ahead and ask us...
The pictures on their own.
And a fact which angers not only the organisers, but the hundreds...
Cook and more were born.
1948.
...is on call to help them with any technical...
In a corner of his studio, Stan Hayward is working...
...which are fixed on the outside of the hull. All right, we're...
You come to accept it.
Is right, yes.
With extended facilities for handling physical objects rather than data.
All these centuries old, to be as flexible as this one.
No. They're quite...
Lost a couple of feathers, I think.
Whom the expedition have pretty well...
I've seen nothing but a little boy in a Buster Brown suit and collar, you know.
And I think that...
And it drags in those little tinies, you know, who are about...
George's name was not included. He hasn't been training, said Mr...
One. Who? In modern time.
Nobody at all.
There, one mouse with whiskers.
And how much have you been paying?
In 1773, founded the business, and that was the sort of hat that he was...
Blend them into the...
And we were quite disappointed in the fact that several of the entries had
And all you do is sit in front of a camera and prattle.
And get paid.
with hardly a breeze to fill their sails.
Members of our Earth observation delegation.
His fans didn't want him to change, but by putting him in an...
Running as fast.
Good tales, mind you, that they've tested it and they can't.
And also we never had the problems of Europeans.
Nearly hot.
No.
Not quite. And when it's ready...
Pacific class.
Animals, and that's the way Molly loves it.
Anyway.
Little box on the top of this television set is going to land a lot of couples in the divorce...
Annie...
Black Thatcher. The outrageous marigolds at number... there was some eye.
But the audience wants to know what's going to happen next. His readers, and in our case, the audience, they want to know what's going to happen.
Languages have a flavour to me, which are...
In a way, this little... Very comfortable...
Of trains of electric pulses. These are distributed and stored in the machine.
Furniture was an old...
Mr. Hart, with young helper, is currently operating the signal box at...
Only write to girls, then?
Yes.
Forgotten as he strove toward...
First time it is a set of connections on the left. Inside this wheel, as I've...
Intense, it's fun, and you really do learn.
Feed in the wild from their mothers, of course, first of all, and then when they've...
A radio telephone scheme, as it's called. The idea came from the police.
A satellite, you think I'm going to...
Computer printer, you can produce your own programs on paper.
As the crow flies, or rather as the Tyrannosaurus Rex flies.
Clearly that'd be wildly uneconomic, but it would enable them to bring...
Bishop Stopford. Hands off, he said.
It goes any harder to me as everybody else.
So you can fend for yourself?
Yes. Packet of rice biscuits with seaweed inside.
Lamp, and if that works, then the trouble does lie between the socket and the television.
Chain is at number 4, and Porky's 2 moves down.
The makers of this system hope that over the next 10 years it's going to do for television what the
gold flag of the old Weimar Republic flies again.
On the one hand, I was going through what...
Drought area makes everyone happy there, and of course the area that's... Mind the other way, Chevy.
Pregnant lady, she wasn't that old. I then played an old...
By picking up its natural vibration.
It's been absolutely terrific. I just didn't think that...
And especially Sunday.
When do you want to...
We have to go right through the sequence of chiming and striking.
But when he's finished eating...
Surface failure. And that...
To you, what would you like Tony Hart to draw?
I'd like him...
Obvious.
One sequence in Night Trap in particular.
1900s. Caroline is 16, and if you look like her...
With any luck, I'll be the third bullfighter on the left in El Dorado.
Members of their family, all pearlies with close on $250,000
kettle to firing a missile from a great distance simply by batting.
With a record as idiosyncratic as King of Rock,
I ink in this crazy dog, Rhubarb.
A dash of drums.
Woof, woof.
Yeah, of course.
How? Three of whom are still very...
Sparge it to ensure that all the sugars are removed.
It's 58 inches wide, and it's only 47...
Made programmes on tape for machines like this have been disappointing.
Walk across Niagara Falls.
Non-employment, and I don't understand what the moment. And there really is a...
I think. Now, one of the nicest things, probably, about places like Piccadilly...
thing which was present at the beginning of the observation.
Sunday morning in Hereford.
It's on there, on a little peg at the back.
Star. Phones have been ringing at the Sanctuary all...
Well, this service station at Crawley...
Demand for them if they did, because of all the money spinners.
As the water saying that with every tapper, there's also a copper.
Are you Napoleon? No, I'm his friend.
Very exciting, but
very derivative.
Rising all the time. The plan is...
Children.
The whole squad of lizards
and tigers, but a marine zoo.
I think. What made you want to come into the railways? A general interest in transport.
Been on the spot since 1911.
The neutral...
As long as you like the music, you can wear what you like.
They run it.
Waves were sent.
Yes, that's right.
How did you know it was Radio Moscow incident?
Because every 4 or 5 words...
Do you want to come with me?
Let's replace our skull with a mirror and upheaval.
So the aspect of life and all the problems that the central government has to do.
Hill, and I'm so short that when I go to a dance...
Well, of course, this, as you...
Any luck, I'll be the third bullfighter on the left in El Dorado.
Sets up base camp.
I must say, though...
Time, and they look me up and down.
The same things, where the...
Lovers, especially if it's followed by a high-protein...
change more rapidly than Acts of Parliament.
And
also to these problems are our plans.
Behind the children came the others, closely bunched together, with all but 2 finished.
Problems with... The last year, you could have a tag at the top of the show which said, Mr. Leon Britton.
Ireland, perhaps, but I like to know where I'm going at my own.
Everybody wanted one man, Billy Connolly.
Well, suspect about wanting to be naked.
that would depend on your mind. And
go down.
No, sir.
No.
The right level with fuel. Incidentally, because Concorde's cruising height...
In the universe. You see, the Lord of creation fashioned by God in his own...
Like a good cup of for the money, because it's cold, it's not... It's...
One gives a cry...
The same. Did you? Yes.
Jump in.
And if Grace pulls total yield, as held in these tankers...
Mercer Raceabout.
You know, I mean, you've actually paid for your...
They are believed to have a lifespan of 20...
Sharon and Elsie.
My attention was drawn to the electric socket...
Frank O'Connor, sometime librarians...
A buffet lunch relieves the pressure of the...
Own homes, providing they are prepared to work for it.
I make about...
1948. The doctors were still divided and uncertain. That...
And, somebody's...
particular point in investing large sums of money in bikini.
The right time to start dancing. Before...
For children, or for those... will be an invaluable aid. Months of work will be reduced.
Wimbledon's price increase inevitably follows...
As far as you can is to go back the way you came.
At 200 against you.
You know, we have about 4 shut when closed, and pop singers would sing, not imitate.
Too much, because they are more...
To get the knack. 19 staff at 2 tills.
Has built hospitals...
of the animal, that partly by rubbing off the grease on its fur and
Can't do.
Hammering nails in. As when I'm at work...
Are you pleased he did? I'm delighted he did.
He stayed, played for City and...
As she passed.
Oh, do you think it's going to work?
I think it may have.
Instance comes from a relative newcomer to network television, from Rupert Murdoch's fledgling.
We was treated like royalty in America.
And then right out in...
It should be. I'm heavily made up for the role of the profligate and depraved Archduke in...
Party.
Yeah, you're on the way, but can I have your answer?
Didn't have the nicest voice, but she was the most determined one. I think
He probably get his guys tomorrow and come up here, so they'll be waiting for us. So that we can't do. We got to cool, you know.
Do you think it was the pressure of having the television here?
Well, possibly, yeah, but it was dead.
That's the old dodgy strawberry.
7. But according to British Railway...
Who runs this island, Lieutenant Commander...
Had holes free of...
Far side of the greenhouse and onto the garage at the top of Gadbury.
Final, who's going with the expedition to help Jack Lester.
Sympathise with the police, I think.
Alan Hunter, a man who can read...
This bag here... Championship show of 1972
and then...
Gone. The trade of horsebreaker. You know, one night you'll be walking by with a girl or something, he jump you with a couple of other guys. So you figure, all right...
Drunk in charge of horse. Yeah. But you've got to make you walk the weight.
Silk, the raw silk that's taken off from the cocoons onto the machine.
The milkman, for instance.
He was early abroad on December the 20th.
Billion bits of information and sending them...
Place without any creases in. Well, we don't have a 10-ton bus.
What sort of people normally...
She shall be diplomatic.
Priority through all states.
A miss. In fact, many judges have taken to sending their wives out or their clerks.
Where were the animals?
So what you're saying is that I've bought a green lipstick.
We can manipulate molecules to make all kinds of materials. And communicate...
There's council.
Remember...
Liverpool. How did you yourself learn to make musical instruments?
I've got thousands of them, not to worry. Just put the...
Of the BMC range, the front-wheel drive models remain
During the day, they're locked on the out.
Two businessmen, reps, journalists, doctors, even rental car.
Without drastic modifications, I don't think...
Cook from the Blue Peter production team happened to go along to Phillips, the auctioneers.
Last few years, we've had an ever-increasing number of Irish around.
Check out these carrots. I made these carrots.
Before you get a jump and they did the same.
Yeah.
Fleet Jossman found that one so foreign to me.
Now of his identity, but hidden from public view and bewildered by all the fuss.
Invented a thing called the splurge gun, which is...
And finally, the latest...
Alternative form of travel. Well...
There's only one way to repair the tissues and smooth the old brow.
There is so much state interventionism. It is...
Up to yesterday, lovely.
There's a history with this car.
A sinking ship, and Sweden is one of the...
That's a terrible alluvial plain. They command it from a range of...
The most unusual resident of any house...
The alternative titles you came out with before...
The level of entertainment...
He's snowed under with work, enough for a year.
It's the centre of the BBC...
Away, there was no cry.
The device down onto the tin, and locking, and away.
Succession of tidbits.
Designed and made by the Pi Radio Company.
We're going to see a preview in New York.
So close together.
Did Britain's only American star.
More shouts.
Take your hands out.
Brent and Ninian fields. By 1980...
The garage. If you want to find Evans the oil...
But from the point of view of her posture, her gait, her morale...
Harry and...
When the tide's out. When the tide goes out, the fish lies...
When United's manager, Frank O'Farrell...
3 weeks ago for its grand final meeting.
This is years ago for £2.5 million, and Gleeson got in...
Over there, by the moment, so I've got to cut the engines now. I just used...
The Helsinki shopkeepers have been serving...
Tells me...
Your stuff over there?
Oh, yes, because...
For the marksman waiting to fire, there's one moment here that's chance.
Can be produced by various sequences of throws.
Piece of sponge glued in position. Now stick that...
Half that has the heating element behind it, and the other half is just an
fast card in real life, like a kind of computer game, or play Michael Jackson, anything like that.
To those like him unfamiliar with London, and particularly...
Personal video is due to go on sale in Japan very soon.
Tons. This great compression in...
Lines, widespread failures...
Only recently that the police had to be called out to...
Because the four-wheelers were introduced.
But in fact, there's a lot more to it than that, because... This...
Hall inferior, Tom Marshall.
Mr. Marshall...
In memory so that I can change it. So I can sit here at the terminal and make it...
In war reporting in those days, of course...
Of the horological section of London...
To see much
Bristol. Do you want to know, do you compose...
He doesn't know it yet. Today is rather special. It's the last delivery he...
It's the speed of an artillery shell. There's...
Can you lean back a bit? Stand back a bit.
Already ordered 20.
Our investment, because we're getting money in at 5 or 6 or 7 years instead of...
And it was then in his membership because he's got influenza.
Well, and then that comes...
So what you're saying is that I've bought a green lipstick, which is really pink.
The bank holder, that.
They smash things up, they don't work,
They live off the state.
In fact, the kitchen staff have felt very sleepy while
an assured and guaranteed away.
10 centimetres wide.
No cockfighting.
A bit of the chair, but there's a little bottom.
Anthracite to form... Snare drum.
For instance, the cartwheels behind me each spoke...
The binary equivalent of 23.
These, in an emergency, they rely...
B, no delay. But now listen to what happens. As I carry on with my apologies...
Suck and blow and don't inhale.
A wonderful variety just at the moment. Some of them are rather expensive, but most of them...
24 miles an hour. Many viewers will have seen the model of this...
Doc and Pluto the Pup in the Disney cartoons when they...
On the ball, as it often do, and it's right in the middle of the Dales.
It's not really a service, it's...
At the wheel, K-Dog.
There are no elevators in the Flea. To climb or dive, the whole front wing moves.
Symbol, the hallmark that you'll be seeing...
Down there and back in.
In London. Founded on that watertight Tottenham defence. There was no holding the Spurs, and it became a question...
What they do and how they do it is rightly our...
Best last year.
And it has other devices too, of course.
Carry on clicking, you can make them go.
Let's...
Around the central pole, on the outside, all the people, outside all the skittles.
That he's made has always been of a negative nature.
Present the music that's...
Perhaps it's raining and so on. And...
People on the ferry, there are crates of booze being brought back.
Well, it's been a very...
Resting on a chain of islands.
Flock at once.
Only in this way could proper inspection be made of the...
Rolling slightly right and pull back on the stick. Oh!
$38 million in the States, something like that in the past few weeks, so that's very successful.
Models have all the equipment for a mainline junction.
To this, what effect does it have on trade?
Well, with my...
Name, Othello.
Oh yes, I'm sure you could. Othello, how...
Taking their cue from the Harlem Globetrotters.
Well, he wouldn't do that, but he could take it to pieces.
If he could talk, I'm sure...
Much, much less space on the airwaves. In the space, it...
It's gotta fly, I gotta fly.
He didn't shut up and he did strangle himself.
Is it stable on that with three wheels?
Absolutely. Yes, it's...
turntable, so you can turn round and go...
Prime novel. That was the first thing.
Yeah, so you can tell because there's the...
Wide, and the whole...
Countryside. Atomic power stations make news. Pylons.
I would think they tend to regard...
World. It was opened on Monday.
Bandsman had been an...
And the runners are now...
Like that. And then you get some...
Turn the whole of the wash into good farmland.
I'm getting bored of him, I think.
A ragwig, and I'm going to... This was the idea.
It looked like green tea. Then you put your feeders in, you know.
JID London, ZS1, Peter in Cape Town, standing by.
Astronauts, it's now being...
Is it possible? This is one of the great locations to put a town on.
For other cameramen, he wouldn't even stage what he calls his...
round look as elegant and majestic as...
I'll do it. Now, this is actual Space Invader.
So what? These are the knee joints here, and these two rather...
But it's always been a problem to make the water after...
One thing you're not is being husband and father of a family.
The opening of the food fair here in London, the food
temperament, contrasting perhaps with that...
Public occasions, anything other than the traditional anthem will be used.
He was born in Baghdad.
Twice as many as... It wouldn't, but the fact that my father was the county captain.
We had a slight something...
Sulphur company, 7 or 8 hours a day. And
As they say.
furiously. And I found that, for me, it was a brilliant...
That's all from Newsroom tonight. Good night.
2000 is a very...
Relatively 3 times more than you did when you weren't pulling 3G. So, what does that...
Artist is a religion.
Well, it seems to me...
In fact, there are smaller packs available to do small-scale experiments, such as... Click.
take pictures.
Wondering for a moment how these pictures came to be taken? Well,
to Whitby, all of which are...
To touch the machine. The machine does it all for you. So Val was made in this one that I've already got here,
if you like. And what the digital interface does is to act as a simultaneous
much to boost the fortunes of Fox Television.
It's not every day that you're visited by the Queen.
They do this sort of scheme in a...
Very few people could manage to get a car. If anyone was lucky enough to own them.
We are working against...
of Dundee,
where... In the inlet manifold. Now, for the engine to work at...
Turned up the ends like that to make little feet shape.
The Russians, actually. We don't go to Russians anymore.
We don't go to Russians, no.
Frightened to death of them. They are all hers.
All time.
Well, like car in the first instance, and photograph
meetings or...
Stand in the middle.
document at the same time.
Now, you've also got pedal.
And Eddie Fisher's daughter, Carrie.
Well, we have to take a group of 12.
It indeed is Othello's occupation.
Ladies and gentlemen, the television orchestra.
the roof littered with junk, old sails, fishnets, lobster pots, and
the public in Japan. It's the first person...
It's a German Opel truck and a Volkswagen. Well, in that lot, one British...
Routine sampling today, we're looking at our hand-crimped product.
Rolling hills around Malvern. Hardly the setting for an industrial success story.
The computer itself contains 1,500...
How many children have you got?
And I wish you wouldn't refer to it any...
Up with our reporter, Mike Clayton.
Have you met John? Good to see you today.
How do you do?
Mike.
Nearly all sequence determination.
Star Trek game. I heard that story in the...
Oh, I'd like to be when you kiss them.
Often identifies with the boyish...
Possible to preserve its beauty.
Well, here in a moment, we'll try her on that. You pricked up your ears when I said trifle, didn't you?
Just half an hour after Miss Markow...
Everybody was determined to finish the course.
Tinian was returned. The same thing happened at Mrs.
The success of a piece of music...
Do you think you've got a bargain?
Oh, very much so.
How do you know in these days of inflation?
Happy birthday!
She doesn't seem to want...
He invents a machine to overcome it. This is one of the Corps were smartly on parade to receive their Colonel Commandant, Sir Humphrey Gale.
Quite a few. I think we've learned that...
Where do you export to?
We export all over the world.
Hugh has to do it on 4.
Okay, well, I'm done.
Transport to help disabled people make their journey.
To start from
Thing you buy for your children?
No, it's a rip-off, isn't it? 20...
He was Doctor Who, but you had an amazing costume as the Pied Piper. What are you going to wear for him?
And then he finally goes, hugs me, and he crosses...
And wouldn't it be interesting to see how one of those programmes was made?
The girls were going back too, in trains of...
We should be able to absorb 2 lines of traffic, and thus...
The walk begins, 7 Eccles Street.
Helium. And this gives...
That's right. Whoops, Daisy. There it goes, onto the plate. And the little...
And certainly it's only as a result of the overwhelming...
When all these pieces of...
There's no off flavour.
Well, you and the representatives of the army and manufacturers...
Than an egg in the children's biology class.
And it had dashed away almost a ton by itself.
I'll be there, straight away. There you are, Val. That's a good start.
You, Side. Fairly...
Is over by 11 o'clock. This is a film of Saturday.
And the thing to remember is that the...
We now set up.
To a bathtub, steaming on the kitchen floor.
And,
how was he powdered with...
Is it painful?
My name's Bond, James Bond, and I'm licensed to kill.
It surely must be here. A Baron's...
Some bad tough to be...
Julie's got the ball.
Good. Right, we'll go...
Young father.
I think I'm the young father.
You know that with this...
Hot as well, so it's got to go through this heat exchanger.
Right, now let's watch this delicate manoeuvre of tying the string. I don't even...
I was satisfied with the BBC as it was before them.
And only 20 of these have ever...
Local derby with the baggies, and I'm looking forward to it with a great feeling.
Either way, I think the belt...
Presentation of the internet on the final gold ring.
There have been...
And
I feel that I still have...
Edinburgh, introduced over the summer. It's the first of 3 signals for the future that the railways...
And along...
That was Granny, locked up in the cupboard.
Selling at about 80 pence. There's a...
Unlike the scene outside, there was no...
Well, why, the centre of the picture shouldn't be the point of interest.
Scale is about 1.5 millimetres to the foot and...
Passengers will cross the Atlantic. This centre saloon, situated above the wing...
Well, it probably is. It's probably... all of this is High Street, I should think, and...
Good boy. Come on, it's a bit wet. Come on.
He didn't know how to play a song slowly. So every time they got anywhere...
They used to say, are you supposed to be a...
monsters that we said we'd be showing you now, the ones that have won our Blue Peter Monster...
Aristocratic pair of pants, the sight of a noble mane on a title...
And beat them.
The players now have plenty...
Chairman about a week ago in the course of an argument.
Sold about 10 million copies in paper.
But do you think there's enough drama?
5 from London to Manchester.
Cavemen, you know, the high forehead and the big stick.
But, like, you know, it's not way out or anything.
Blue skies. And they investigate the remains.
Judgment, Mr. John Platt said there was no doubt in his mind.
Of 30 pence for a trip of Leicester.
Threepence a game.
Threepence per player.
Only the flashes from Cap Green Lighthouse pierced the gloom. And from now on...
Our photographic experts still maintain that the UFO is much bigger.
Names they call their children, crime.
Various charities. Apart from that, I don't...
People who aren't here anymore and whom I miss.
Meanwhile, at one of the very swift...
Well, I didn't feel hungry anyway.
For example, the old telephone...
Is a definite divide between...
I think it's very attractive, and I think it's good size for old people to have in their purse.
There because it looks a big...
Whereas beasts died in the area in which that dog was.
Be an endurance test.
Via the local council. You have to give it to a council.
For the reasons that evidently Pong is not a good...
It's not, son. Come on.
Even... will mean a complete...
Isolated communities in the British...
And one has had each fortnight the time to develop just that.
Number 4, Martin Peter.
The company has chosen to operate in the comparative...
One of the most famous trainers, already 7 times the winner of the...
The snow is whisked away, the ice breaks up on the rivers.
There, which you could take out in news, whereas with the foyer...
Any country speaking any language, travelling about the continent, including this...
And
I'll set the mobile going.
Some others over there.
2 things at the same time opens up a new and...
Pay for telephone calls.
With hardly any rules...
without drastic modifications, I don't...
With stereo and express train...
Is given an even more badly needed drink. A fully fledged journeyman now.
Well, I thought...
Are responsible for public...
As can be imagined, this hasn't gone down at all well with the island's 300 car owners.
DJ playing the records that the noise is reaching the limit, then if the noise...
And focuses them on one small point right in the centre there.
And produce much healthier...
In the year 1911, when a bit...
manipulating your movement, so to believe that this...
English and Scottish armies came to Berwick whenever they wish...
Yes, as you can see...
Is looking, yes.
Good morning. Even bid you have a good night's sleep. And it detects...
Indoor garment, yes.
For her to discover who that...
Well, that's unrepeatable. I'm afraid I couldn't tell you.
It's going to take you thousands...
Seemed a little bit ridiculous to me, and the premise of the movie is that...
Ask themselves.
Mr. Willings, but there is just one thing that worries.
And there they go, 6 tons of them, over 1,000 baskets of luxury that have cost no...
Its sniffer,
Now
go around, they tend to push it backwards and forwards across the table, and it's rather...
She feels dressed up. Also, from the point of view of the men's...
The ski slope that Nationwide first wondered at when my...
Each model takes 20 hours to make out of formica, wood...
The of this doll is that it comes with a...
Hello, children.
Need an idea. Straw, they are boiled.
Tunnel.
Of Britain's industrial manufacturing base lies in part sceptical, but the regulars of gourmet night.
Cameras, cables you tripped over, the things you could and couldn't do.
On the bus, the station, everybody. What did you see?
This was my signature. The change is quite exciting, and I would...
I'm glad to say I only do it once every...
time. I think, And
I think it fair to say that Eureka...
...of the prison, safe in the knowledge that they are...
Now it's the newsroom of Channel.
Entirely different than the old model. No slots for pennies.
Or entertainment and...
Tension from the need to...
Spot. There's something brewing which could change the flavour of...
Can...
Go quite fast.
You have it.
But stay thou in the shadows yonder.
They're exploiting what is...
I don't really see the point of your programme. Every week someone complains...
Speakers are cut, and the conversation can...
Perhaps even 10, 15 minutes in a period and...
tea, beer, milk, anything you like, and it'll...
Fortunately...
Get a really clear idea of how well his car...
A little bit awkward. You take the prong and you...
Who carved these masks from older wood.
Nora was named after the vet who delivered her, and the...
Tourists park in the streets. But I came to the...
Hi, Mum.
To be the first to hear
Clothes in the midi length.
I
always treat myself to a deck chair.
At the port of Esbjerg in Denmark some days ago, great beer...
Against Manchester United last season in the corresponding...
My clocks get their solar energy from Big Ben, and Big Ben always been my boy.
When a peculiar form of football is played to rules that very few people comprehend.
Cricket 7 centuries on a day of...
As you can see, everything has just...
And this thing, you know, from the top of their head.
All high...
Will I win the football pools? Let's see.
Yes, that's right.
I'm also a little worried about these wheels.
You notice she's wearing a red dress.
Costs only 2 and 2.
To see the future.
Doesn't seem to worry me at the moment.
Sure. Well, we expected, I don't know, everybody did, that it was possible to...
Apart from the plain ones, like a Cadbury Dairy Milk, the very first...
To compare it with...
Office communication. Now a...
That's the verdict of farmers from Cornwall and Devon right across England. Nearly 3...
Why won't you buy them?
Why do you think this is?
Well, this is a...
Bavaria.
By hanging. Logically, his death should have been the end to those incidents.
Married on Christmas Day.
I'm aware of how their stories are affecting their audience.
Whose president is Mr. Keith Stevens. As a warrant holder yourself...
Get in. Gotta get them in a minute. You're gonna go... It is quick. My chicken...
Well, mainly spirits, but they do take some beer too, but mainly...
Guyana.
Where do you export to? We export all over the world. Canada.
At the moment, both mother and daughter are doing very well.
A drink. If I said it's worth sitting there.
Settle back into another quiet 500 years. But what...
But I think it can be...
Feeling that the war was coming.
But how much in...
Rubbish. They lie in wait for the postman to the domestic electricity supply.
Yes, there is the gap. Entering into this old...
The stub of the old one. It's a painless process, a bit like having your fingernails cut.
Principle. That war between the states...
Spoken played back to them.
This probe, which monitors the temperature. And then, all I have to do is...
Safely. There'll be other difficulties to be overcome.
Remember something, and we say, please, come back.
take a little bit more training.
And a very serious reason why commuters have taken...
Yes, otherwise the water runs off the surface instead of penetrating in.
And we have a very wide range from 5...
These cost about £3 each.
Shut up! Fred, dear, your knees should be together.
Of course.
On the top, which is...
Bunged up. And they said, and the little man turned around and said, who do you...
John Logie Baird carried out the experiments that gave the...
We're on the bottom controls, and my hands are now on the top.
Do you think you ought to be given permission to shoot him?
Good singer, actually. Yes, you are.
And they want him to come and solve their mysteries.
Yes.
And, of course, a lot of...
At an antique piano, Laws and Wiggins and Barnsley's a chance in the world, and I'm quite...
Now, at this point, you might say Noakes has gone mad. It's...
There's that style at all. If they made it like they could it, and like they were allowed to in those days.
Topping. Well, if that's not begging for a reply, I don't know.
I'm
back in. A bit later on.
Bones themselves, here you can see the backbone, ribs on either side.
In the vehicle again, and this time we loaded all the equipment in...
It has already been planned into place.
We're on.
I have.
Another technique is to devotion.
At the moment...
The sound is made by the air vibrating in the tube as you swirl.
How long would you stay out for under the influence of that?
Oh, 5 or 6 hours.
Can't see mum at all. And I like fish, and I used to order sea bass. And every...
Yes, well, perhaps not.
Spots in Europe for motor racing, because this roundabout is at the end of a street.
Is a shortage of salt?
No, I would like to believe. I think...
Farmer at Verdun in France got quite a shock this morning when he went out...
And hard.
Can't even see any. No.
Television centre to see it being built.
It's not just concrete preservation. The Brooklyn Society want to preserve that...
Sorry. I went wrong with that, but it turned out nice in the end.
Oh, dry land soccer men dream about. And as the pace became hot and hectic...
You can't set it up. I mean, you may do in rehearsal for time, but when you're doing it, you really...
When they're roosting. The plinth is so infested with...
Nation's area.
For fun. If they were building in earnest, there'd be other...
Here's Camberley Kate. Is a sort of doggy foster mother.
12.
12. At school?
Junior high.
He's in the forest of aerials.
Listener, that's great. Thanks very much.
Is dressing, combing it by hand.
We have a cat, which is...
No, I don't think so. I think I'll leave that.
Back to the slow...
Dungeness is now the last...
That we've lost a single lamb this year. Well, I told Steve, the huntsman, this...
Opening door, I think.
Down here, and mark you, he's going to be an incident. Really would be in danger if they went to London.
What was the other way then? Not
without the kiss.
Right.
To their credit.
They're fixed in the form of a breakwater across this bleak and desolate strait.
When the man who lived in this house woke up one Monday up, I found that I seemed to get a bigger...
Is when all cider was made on the farm.
Happened. Now she's in her late 30s.
It's so sad. Me most of all. Yes.
Enough taking, we've become as popular.
Surrounded by new facilities, up to now unobtainable here, Beef Southwark. 3, 4, hash, and we'll get...
Please, assessor down in Piccadilly.
Has gone up outside the very...
£5,000. And...
Help us to understand the quite extraordinary things which dear...
Have another planet to go to, just there'll be loads of towns. It's really good. You get lots of information from it.
But you'd get...
starts to speak, and as she speaks, she starts to bend in. She says, oh, what a lovely little... That's the sort of idea that...
Nice and slowly now, nice and slowly.
Stages from the rocket.
Failure. Have you got right past that and you're into new ground?
These ladders, the handling of which is an art.
Ah, Mr. Boyle, how much television...
Sila.
Turn them forwards. And in the case of...
Over boisterous, shall we say, and gallop towards things she likes. Well, if you're going to have a go...
On the ground. Like...
Man's world. It's been called just a... face, the number of the aircraft which she has been instructed to keep track of.
There's certain hard work that he just can't do.
Hammering nails in.
Old. Yes.
Fox agreed. Total population was 24,000, and 87% of them reacted favorably.
Was an event which you shouldn't miss. Universal automation. It's a 1.5-ton hydraulic...
Whole of the Scilly Isles, from the Duchy of Cornwall. August...
This year, the main...
Then that is good fighting.
And the Spice Girls.
BBC pays for them, by the way. There's no question of just using review copies.
But I think it's probably simpler to cut.
Adventure, either imported from
other islands and other boats. Fiddler on the Roof.
No. Cheers. You like beards?
Regarded as one of the greatest...
High discretionary powers.
Well, I don't think I'm qualified.
Particularly when we...
But not before a little of that 200...
Oh! Have you ever... Shown the goal. It's in winter when the match is postponed because the grass pitch is unusable.
It again, can you then fix it forever?
Paid. I mean, I get much...
Left-hander.
Yeah.
So you've got to get... That when having heavy downpours of rain, we put the fans on to...
Born in the parish of Blidworth since Christmas.
I don't like this as a follow-up, but...
They're arrogant.
Two places. In the fuse box. They're clever, these electrical people.
Not only do they neglect breakfast, but nobody has lunch before 2.
Britain's oldest crafts made new again. The brewing and bottling of mead.
Only by the wavelength of the light. We can consider, therefore, that the spot size can be...
What prices are you charging for them?
Well, at the moment I'm charging...
And cucumber.
Back at Heathrow, the press were being...
Showing that even the opposition...
Like this, David?
Yeah. This almost airless chamber. And test out what...
Well, I don't know. Well, they're going to have a...
Disturbed and hyperactive children. And there could also be...
Well, there you are. That's where we...
People who come here who are really good organists, so we have a lot of...
Navigational involvement on the part of Apollo's computer.
Unfortunately...
Who is creditworthy. This is the only thing that you can go on.
How do you do that?
What's the standard of refereeing been so far?
Congratulations, Burton Beck Matthews, on that golden wedding. You know, Hampstead must have been a...
Did he? You love this place, Jessie. What is it that it has...
Taking his audience by the hand through situations...
Driven by foot power.
By changes in the pit.
Or two down would ring up and say, I'd like the doctor to come a bit.
I find that it is a great relaxation to just sit back and have other people...
Ammunition. Anything, in fact, from sausages to...
Been collecting for a few years, is now reaping the wisdom of his early days, isn't he?
And gregarious...
The water very careful. And I suddenly came across this note I'd written down in an old notebook, which was high on a rocky...
Demanding this way. If, unlike radio, it requires your...
Lancaster. And the policeman in the car was playing war because the traffic lights were all...
Gets it. But you just go to a different scale. That's easier.
Wearing a sack dress. I wonder if you could tell me whether you would if you had one.
Oh, I certainly would. I think...
Commented on the number of programmes that viewers described as rubbish. Well, we hadn't been off the air for 30 seconds.
63.5. Walk and slip down a hole.
To stream across the back.
A central image. Cause you could say, whatever it is, if you can think it, you can...
You would be prepared to forget...
And finally tonight...
Let him paint you, and you don't lean over his shoulder all the time saying, I don't squint as much.
And this is the first day at her new job.
You haven't met anyone exciting yet in the laundrette?
No, not at all.
I always buy,
My sister does
what are they called?
There's a cooking pot.
By which is to be known.
Out of your stable, Don.
Well, there's one oddity in that the Listowel and Bally...
Out towards the pack.
Amuses me.
And wonderful. That wasn't the truth. The truth is the truth that the Simpsons will tell you.
New York was the Seven of Hearts.
Oh, I just pinched your bottom. Did you like that?
Good God, you frightened the life out
He's a firm favourite, but couldn't the other bloke have an occasional win?
It's quite a skill, and...
But of course, the badger does have very strong front paws, don't they? So they can...
Well, whether or not they like rock and roll, Tommy, in...
I've lost weight.
That dear little... You've lost...
Part of the industry's intensive effort to improve still further.
His fellow artists on for causing an obstruction.
Complex. Indoors, there's a soccer pitch. Came and took the lamb back, but before... Mars.
In fact, one can switch
From fast to drive to rewind to forward to drive.
The latest in the famous line of ships built by...
Put a rug on it. You might as well set a man trap.
Bound to rock the establishment.
The electric car has three basic advantages.
The Easter parade, what do you travel in?
Oh, that's the awful part where we...
In one of these. Or you could clean up...
To show us any of the more difficult steps that you've mastered.
Yeah, sure, actually.
Left me by you people in the smoke.
Do you regard critics highly? Do you have to have...
This is a multi-purpose thing. We shall find out better when we're on the moon.
So from there.
Test for car and perforce.
As compared to present 12 or 15.
What must be the most expensive and the most exclusive number...
Durham area, and then...
Badges. Carnaby Street became a worldwide...
For 2, here's one for 3. Watch.
We get Cold War up here. You've left a gap.
Another world championship. Manning for...
And not necessarily remember what it is I said, you know.
Next thing out now, there goes the meteor, followed by the venom.
I think that we have a relationship.
Right, there's some coffee left over there for you.
Reason why, and I discovered that the whole attitude towards children...
In a way, this is where the prized so-called...
certain portions of the planets and so forth took a long...
Events and happenings at home and abroad.
New edition.
George Leatherbarrow, the council's main contractor.
Hello. Come on then.
It was a great place once, one of the world's greatest.
With you?
And she sent me 10 shillings or a pound or something.
We come. Each player has 2...
The climb is dangerous.
5 hours.
Long tube. They move from the oven along the tube.
Is there enough to trigger the alarm?
The telephones that Carol and Anne use are the lines that...
The Queen Mary has just completed her yearly overhaul in dry dock at...
That I'm chasing one this time.
What do you think it is yourself?
I think it's a large animal of some kind.
So that they have been used...
Well, 17th century. And he was going...
I was amazed when we sent out, we had an old list.
I fear that somebody...
No question about it.
Tape standards available in this country.
Indeed. A live phone call comes into this recorder here.
It had a very profound effect on you very early in your career, did it not?
Oh, very much so.
Scientists.
Two traditional ones and...
One of the good fuses.
Now, here's...
Because there's not a lot of room here in the studio.
Nowhere. I think a lot of people tend to think...
It's been based upon tragedy.
For parents, economy rooms for the children.
Pager, where your messages are actually written down electronically. You don't even need...
The minority...
And as time went on and the long gaps developed...
Reasonable length for a Grand Prix, but you can have...
Do they?
No, but they come out of it, I think...
No, see, you've got to remember the American audience is the global.
An up-to-date British passport. Because if you don't...
Here in Cornwall, they still have a whole range of different traditions.
And the Kenmare fishermen bring them...
Now, with the publication of Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy...
In the face of such united opposition...
Just a house comes off. ...of a sleepless night sinks in.
Conceals the garment on her or in her bag.
Called Sarah, she's got the most hair and she's 3 months old, and this little tiny one...
Do you think you could illustrate?
Where it began was this. The flood water came down from the...
Working man in Dublin and Derry and in Belfast.
The river that divides England from Wales. Here men have fished for salmon since the day...
Composed of some 400...
Instead of the 30 tons of steel that went into...
To run away like that, a big...
I mean, whiskers... a good expression.
We have done that. We've had to sustain...
In a million years, because this is absolutely hopeless.
What are your names?
To tell me who you consider to be the great jazz musicians of today. Who are the
The desert. Only camels can move a nomadic family.
This is the
term. For example, 30.
To take the chances.
Of local motor agents.
Of hockey, baseball, skiing, roulette, or even football.
But just down the road here from this main school,
I would like to say
It pleases me, and I think many other people.
And was put in jail in there.
We hope to sell this for approximately £1,000.
Bellamy has long admired the Le Palouf, and for him...
Quietly forgetting their promise to renovate historic areas like the Seven Dials in the West.
That digital future be protected, and the current technology...
Well, 12 hours a day, actually, because you get up, but you do get up appallingly
books.
Now, the brief I've got is you've got...
I always say thank you when you tell me the time.
How many times?
The ranks of television sets and washing machines...
Leaving, really, if I felt that it hadn't gone very well, I probably would have stayed until I was satisfied.
Really?
Don't want to be...
Well, it's worth Dickens, you know, you'll make a fortune. Is that all right? So, you know,
put the ball in the goal mouth from anywhere in his opponent's half of the...
That's good.
Yes, this morning.
No? Well, these are certainly a lot easier to feed than...
A conceivable emergency, can't you? What kind of things can you cause?
Do you think when making...
There's been this outbreak of attack.
Because it made my teeth ache just watching it.
It made my teeth ache.
Prefer to spend their Sundays quietly. Are removed, and with
off mean streets afforded...
Belfast, it is safer.
This then, so near the city centre, is
I paid 2 or 3 times in the night.
Ground wrestling is not allowed, and...
Please Please Me and With the Beagles, they're great. The rest is...
The Cardigan and Gloriana belong to Blue Peter Badge winner...
Hopes to have a fleet of 2,000 in London.
not just assume that they're going to walk off down the street and find...
But rather...
Must be a delay mechanism.
Get to the end. But I don't think...
You only fall off one of them once, like...
My eldest is in Liverpool.
Is he? So says that the steel chassis and the fiberglass body...
I might say.
Turnmill himself.
Seem to care very much how long they go on. They're about 6.
I believe to go back and do those films with the same excitement. I'm slightly sour about this because I haven't got a vote.
Motor cars, for example. The Swedes run more private cars per head of the population than any other...
past few months. Now...
possible. I think that modern science fiction...
For the 300,000 tennis fans expected.
Some are experts.
Their latest invention means people will be able to watch TV when...
Recover.
A few weeks ago was about to join Celtic, has signed up instead. Striking contrast to the...
and son Michael are there too.
The old family hatters, they've had to accept they're living in a...
Man reached the summit and...
In the dust time...
The next obvious step to foil the beasts was to hang the bird food...
And for this American group, Bloomsday's...
Here, I think, must be this sort of caterpillar trap.
Halt down the road and reverse back to the barrier.
Or just trying out my own songs.
Stuck in. There it is. Looks good.
Which some might call substitutes. She paints and is learning the classical guitar, but...
That's wee one.
Which one's your favourite, do you know?
Well, I think...
Or at least all detectives in the Met were like Pyle and...
We the hero.
For real about it. You know, a person that...
An extraordinary picture. You can't really...
Scale speeds up to 300...
In the transmitter...
You get equipment and lessons free, but then you have to start to buy your own gear.
The Duchy of Lancaster isn't. Mr. Thornton is...
Excuse me. Do you know it's the year of...
sequences.
Put this tape of effects in and we'll see what we can do to the camera picture.
A rather fine, upstanding, rugged-looking chap.
Can I still charge you a little? A little bit. If there had 2 referees on the field,
one controlling one half and one...
Almost no sign at all.
Wildlife. And on the last leg of their...
Belong to Blue Peter Badge winner Charlotte Ball. Now, Charlotte, if you could pop your...
In a bright red flash.
Farm work is over. The men of Bozinva turn miners again.
I'm not worried whether you break the window or not, but what are you doing? All right.
These old boxes. Well, they were... what they're called.
The reps and all those sort of people who are so...
Jemima is obviously not amused. Could we have caused offence?
The connection between...
And I always thought, I wish my dad would let me get it. Keys it into a computer.
Charles Dickens came here as a young man and later wrote...
Someone says take it off.
They could go on.
When he's finished his training, he's going to set about doing a
charity at local gymkhanas. And she even beat some of the horses because...
Smashing your pixie, of course, is the mum. Oh, must have been. I like a rescue story. Oh, look out, doggies.
Boulevard.
Gordon Donaldson. For 400 years, the...
has shown that this is probably...
bicycles, if you like. This year, one of the biggest... settled and it held up there for about 3 hours.
What would you just say it looks like?
A long and an arduous job. It's extremely hard work. The men normally work...
Nearly overloaded.
Run back down the surface, so you may need to go...
Coat of arms, plus kitchen utensils, silverware and crockery, to mention but a few.
400. What sort of evidence do you use to decide when it was really built?
Fed and healthy.
Out of poetic writing. She has...
The cat, of course, companionship.
You're supposed to do it. I got in town here in 1912, and he used to go about on the horse. That was all the time.
Perfect mistress. And the perfect point needs more than...
I believe that what sound brought...
Sir Humphrey Gale at their end...
Can we have it once more? Nice clear one for Raymond, come on. Say Raymond.
Synthesizer. It produces sound.
This present church and its...
It might be a Rotary Club, a Women's Institute, or a Mothers' Union.
Piano.
was reached and passed. And soon after this, the locomotives were...
In my life, I think if I was doing it all over again, I'd do it completely different. I would sit there.
Things that go round give a great deal of freedom, like...
One of the harder ones, and this one's called spaghetti.
Spaghetti, that's appropriate.
You devote your column to chrysanthemum.
Good drink, but neither seemed at all in the mood. I think they would have...
Rid of those files.
Operated by...
Traffic speeding along it is another matter.
We have to do better than that.
Has the right...
Scotland, Margaret Irvine of Dunblane, got quite shirty with...
Contrast to the drab city of Berlin.
In 1915, the Allies had recognised the work of...
I'm sure that wood was on top of me, you know, so I just dug myself out as fast as possible. I mean, one time we did it and Brian's piano fell off the... he was playing piano on one.
But after all...
In sales, the professional...
That I do think it's easier to carry on than to be strong about it and say, I must move...
You see, and I don't...
Site to the ferry have had to join a mile-long queue.
Building is the linchpin to the whole Covent Garden.
Of so-called dancers prancing pathetic...
Holding it's exceedingly easy.
You don't have windows in any position.
Where is actress?
Yes. Will actually be on display at the schoolboy...
Aspect. And I'm...
Sounded very vague and...
And what infuriates all of us...
is that the people now looking at this television...
From the film Star Wars is up for sale.
Fish ponds, Llantwit Major, Diggle and Giggleswick and Entwistle.
Did you ever dance in your life?
Yes, I did that as rather...
During the winter means that you're rather stuck at home.
Oh, yes.
I think there ought to be...
Well then, I mean, you won't mind then, therefore, if I confess to you.
Catches here for about...
And someone rings up, or...
Here's another moving object.
But as Dr. Alan
Consumed by the meter since the last reading took place. This is the prototype.
Oh yeah, no resistance. Yes. Go down.
Look round the shop.
For somehow it...
And it was to be put to sleep. I got qualification for county council and the Philly.
Good for your bid or held him in a particular
job. Good, isn't it? For of course you can
market for America, England, and obviously.
But that's not new.
For very, very great carriage.
Why haven't they got any confidence? What's the matter with the Birmingham boy?
Oh, well, of course one feels strange about it. I mean, it's quite different.
No.
Your mother thinks you ought to be spending more time at your homework.
A good, well-bred trot.
Yeah, I do London, so there's one thing Cape Town. Okay, but fine.
If you haven't, if you know what I mean.
Pedal, called a mandel.
Oh, God, ask me some more questions, anything about the book. I'm dying to...
They've got 14 different extensions scattered around the house.
Up in the air like that, and the top end's going like that.
On this strip, there's a whole...
Right throughout the day.
6 o'clock, Clive Christer here in the air chair.
Offered another job, and he had to leave this hunt and move...
Encourages him to follow the election campaign.
He would like to visit and
first laid eyes on him.
He was a wee bit...
Darling on...
Here we have what the French manufacturers call an...
It isn't much to look at, really, but I'm Blackburn.
Tory MPs, the family man of the foursome, and incidentally the most...
You are in the...
Power on this earth will ever convince me that there are...
Distance, but in the end, she satisfied herself that this was a star that ticks like a clock.
Mr. Martin, who was a very nice man during the day.
That there's a close correlation between a driver's performance in the simulator
And next film, as it was then, in Mexico.
Very good. I think he deserved it.
And,
The football, of course.
Football.
The forest. I loved the house for the pleasure...
14th time, it's a row about just where the book...
So many people ask for.
What about gardening tools?
Gardening tools.
For working considerable amount of over...
Listen with your inner ear.
Busy and shouting.
Oh,
No, much better names than that.
You'll never...
Wish you good night.
Tips. You could use play.
We've seen it on television
This week. They've had some wonderful photographs of you sitting in a dust.
Come on, Petra, in we go.
Whether, if he sues.
How's it going? Very well, Fago.
You've got to make sure he's out the way, because if you drop one down...
Ourselves.
Full-cell nervous system.
Locomotive and naming her Britannia.
In this area, they have offered...
This, I think, is a bit cheap for the zone.
So what do you actually do? You have to wet the wall first.
But there is a reason for all this madness. Because...
After 2 or 3 weeks of waiting and messing about...
You'll be disqualified. Oh, and they're beautiful.
Countries, see, nothing remarkable about that.
I couldn't get rid of that fishy smell.
What other... And their new manager, the worst
Board, and that's rather bothered.
At present, it's not possible to cover costs with the amount which has come in. You say...
For me to get in here and just...
Summit and at base. And there...
With,
British Rail won't allow the Dart Valley Railway to go into Totnes Station.
With Stevenage are sharing the delights of radio... Under the legislation.
Which paper will burst into flames. So, let's see what... On one of his cars, it's this one. R.H.
To declare their passion and don't mind others also getting the message on.
Well, please.
Department. As you can see, they do use real instruments here. Let's find out what they've been doing for the grand...
Put all that into a model aircraft.
And your hands down, too, for that matter.
Best possible video from the available material.
Well, we're supposed...
Tunnel. It's no super highway, but for...
So there's a sort of optical point, where an optimum point, rather, where the whole...
About the twilight backstage world, preparing for roles they may never play.
I'm surprised you didn't welcome it.
But of course not as a subject.
No, I think if a company or a corporation is jolly sure of itself...
Let's actually see...
All in wrestling.
With colour, we used a fairly sort of anonymous colour for the main areas, but...
Incredible suspense as we go up this leg.
Brought wealth along with me.
and one of the other boys took that home instead.
Building stands the atomic pile itself.
These air passages that you made.
And say the 80s was the decade of three dimension.
Dr. Jerry C. Nims, just in from a...
Arms and legs, all sorts of places.
All sorts of places.
Yeah.
Underneath is a volume control, there.
Different in our tastes and attitudes, but nevertheless equal, is a very good...
9:45.
I'd like you
You'll be up here later, won't you, when we do it?
Faced, it seems, with the vanishing...
By television.
The neckline is very...
charm of its own. You always feel